It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Jason and Andy and Christina are here. We will talk about all of the rumors and stories about John Ternus, Apple's next CEO, who's going to get to announce some pretty nice products. We'll talk about those. We'll also talk about a smarter Siri, maybe, and a big award for Pluribus. All of that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 1022, recorded Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. Ultra expensive. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Apple news. Say hello to Christina Warren from the fabulous GitHub, where she's at Developer Relations. Hi, Christina.
Hello, Leo.
You'll be glad to know that the founder and CEO of Framework joins us tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic.
Should I ask him about your 13?
You should. You should know. You shouldn't know. You shouldn't ask him about that. You should ask him about the keyboard, about all the Pro and all the new stuff they announced, because that's super exciting.
I think that's why he wants to come on, is talk about the Pro. But I want to talk about the Framework desktop, which everybody still says is probably the best choice for local inference.
It's one of the few. I mean, even with the price increase, like that Strix Halo that AMD came out with is a very
Still
good machine.
good.
If you, especially, and it's interesting. It's like the Studio, Mac Studio is obviously great, but it's almost impossible to get. And
you can't get one because everybody's buying them. Actually, they're all buying the minis.
Yeah, the minis. Everything's sold out.
And I guess I should consider myself lucky to have an M4 Pro 64 gig mini. Not that I use it for AI, but I could if I wanted to. Also here, Andy Anatko. He's in the library where nothing is mini. It's all giant.
The ideas are big. The hope is big.
The budget is small.
It's a wonderful day in New England, Leo.
Hello, Andy. Is spring here?
It keeps flip-flopping back and forth.
I know. It's confusing.
But again, I'm dressed perfectly, but only because I brought like 2 light layers in my backpack, because in 4 hours' time, it might be back to 43 degrees. Everything's fine. The planet is doing great. I'm sure everything's fine.
You never know in New England what you're going to get. And here's Jason Snell, who's celebrating the triumph of the nerd. Hello.
It's always good to be here. Happy to be with my selection of my close personal friends, the old computers behind me and the young people in front of me.
The young people. I guess really the big story still this week lingers about is John Ternus. A lot of articles. I put a sampling of them in our show notes. John Ternus' first big problem is AI, says The Verge. Who is John Ternus, says 9to5Mac. John Ternus says Apple's about to change the world, says 9to5Mac. TechCrunch says John Ternus will run one of the most powerful companies in the world. The job is a minefield. Fast Company says Apple stock is having a surprisingly muted reaction to Tim Cook's exit. Here are 3 reasons why. But my favorite is John Gruber. Taking a little, he calls it claim chowder.
Yeah,
taking a little run at Mark Gurman. Yeah, I don't think we might have mentioned this.
We briefly touched on it, but the idea here is the financial. Look, this is the sequence. The Financial Times broke a story that said Cook's going to leave soon.
Actually, before that, Gurman had been saying all last year.
Yes,
Gurman nailed
Cook will leave at some point, and Ternus is his likely successor.
And he's the one who said Ternus is going to be the replacement almost certainly. Absolutely. Mark Gurman deserves all the credit for that. But then in December, there was this very well-sourced, like 4 different reporters in the byline, detailed story in the Financial Times that said Cook is going to leave and Ternus is going to be the CEO, and they're working on it, and it's going to happen next year, first half of next year.
Should I mention that one of the authors of that story is kind of the chief rival to Mark Gurman for Apple rumors?
They're on the Apple beat, right? At the FT, for sure. So look, at the time, I think we all said this feels like a leak from the board, right? Because you mentioned in passing that headline that was Apple stock muted at this. Well, the reason the Apple stock's muted at this is because there was a big fat leak in the Financial Times in December that prepped everybody for Tim Cook leaving, and like the whole market got to be ready emotionally for what was going to happen.
Prepared.
And so
parenthetically, And parenthetically, so Financial Times got this amazing scoop months in advance. Nobody said beforehand that, hey, we just got some hot rumors that Tim Cook is definitely going to be announcing sometime in the next couple of weeks. That was an actual secret.
Yeah, that was, but it was like a time frame. And then Gurman's response, and I remember saying this at the time, Gurman's response was interesting because it was strangely kind of catty.
Yeah.
But what he didn't do is say they were wrong.
No.
He sort of said, that's not what I have heard, which was really suspicious to me because it's like past tense. And he's not really reporting, right? He's reporting on what people had previously told him. And if the board had decided to do a disclosure to the FT, he wouldn't have heard about it because it would have been a more recent decision to do that. But he came out a little too aggressive and he was like, no. It's not going to happen in the first half. That's not going to happen. And, that was wrong. So like Gurman, it's funny. I think it was just that Gurman got beat on a story because it got leaked on purpose to someone who was not Mark Gurman, because he is Mark Gurman and he's so good at this. They weren't going to come to him with this. He had already kind of spoiled it. So they went to the FT instead.
It also sounds like Mark might have gone to his sources at Apple who told him no.
Or, yeah, well, I mean, in that initial report, it was more like, that's not what I've heard, which was past tense. Like he had already done that reporting previously. And if it had changed, he didn't know. But like, so it's fair. Like I think he overreacted to the FT thing because I think he got caught a little flat-footed because they didn't pick him. And a controlled leak directly from people at Apple, which is absolutely what that FT story was, is always going to beat a very slow leak through the grapevine all the way to one of Mark Gurman's sources. But we got to give Mark credit. Mark Gurman is why we all knew who John Ternus was when the FT story broke.
Correct.
Also, I don't know if we talked about this later, but he had some reportage like a couple days later about like, here's what was going on behind the scenes. Like, apparently he talked to some new people to find out that, well, maybe one of the touch points for this was Srouji telling Tim, look, I'm burned out. I'm sick of managing all this Apple Silicon stuff. I'm really thinking of leaving. And Tim either directly or indirectly saying, we've got to keep this guy at all costs. How can we reorganize the company to make that happen? And the implication being that although that certainly discussion started with, okay, we'll elevate you to a C-suite position, it might have figured out into Tim, as he said this big town hall meeting last week, there are three things that had to happen for me to decide to retire. One of them is we had to have the company had to be in great shape. We had to have a really awesome roadmap ahead of us for hardware, and John Ternus needed to be ready. And 1, 2, 3 things were ready, so I decided to go. But it does. So he does have his sources. I'm not going to editorialize on like how he must have felt or how he might have felt, because that's like, again, there's a point which becomes like Real Housewives of Macintosh tech press, and nobody looks good in that
for sure.
Yeah, no, he gets his laurels for doing the right thing, and people who beat up about the Johnny Srouji news, right? They beat him up over the Johnny Srouji news too, where he reported that Srouji was thinking of leaving, and then 2 days later Srouji said, no, I'm staying. It's very clear that what was happening is that he was negotiating what he was going to do, and if they were going to retain him by giving him more responsibility and a new title, which is what they did.
Absolutely. I don't pretend to know who his sources were and any of that, but I would not be surprised if they came to people close to the situation in terms of knowledge that Srouji basically said, I have other options, right? And I promise you that reporting helped his case when it came to the renegotiation. Would this kind of
leakage have happened under Jobs? Because it does feel like there was a lot of back and forth thing. I mean, some of this was placed, and we know Jobs used to do that with Walt Mossberg in the Journal and other places. But
I think I don't know if we can comment if it would have happened or not. I mean,
this is
man
leaky though, don't you?
Yeah, but it's not leaky compared to a lot of other companies. First of all, and I also I think that it's difficult to say, well, what would have happened 15 years into a company's evolution? Since 15 years since Jobs was CEO, companies change, cultures change. I don't know. I don't think that this is in any way an indictment of Apple, which is still, I think, one of the more locked down, companies out there comparatively to others. And this thing, I mean, as Jason and Andy pointed out, was very clearly leaked early because they wanted the financial community to be able to kind of weigh in on what their choice was going to be. And when they saw that it was, the reaction was basically like, okay, if that's your guy, that's your guy. then you're like, okay, well then we're not getting any sort of massive backlash, then we can feel confident going forward with this.
Yeah, and also beyond the tech press, the word leak has assumed a broader meaning that isn't always applicable. Sometimes it's just good reporting. It's the case of someone developing year-long relationships with people you have never heard of, who nonetheless have their ear to the ground. And when you're trying to, A, B, and C, it makes sense that D, E, and F. How would I confirm D, E, and F? And spending many weeks or months trying to confirm that with, again, these very, very deeply seated, very, very long relationships. So it's bothersome when the word leak is used as though it implies an irresponsible or disgruntled person handing a story to somebody who simply writes it down and then clicks publish. So credit where credit's due.
You think it's more subtle than that? You think it?
Oh,
you think that there's like hints? I mean, it is leakage.
Well, yeah, but so there's different ways. I mean, Gurman, for example, like he's cultivating sources and having conversations and checking things out. It's not a passive thing, right? Which I feel like leaking, sometimes you sit there with a bucket and wait for the leaks to drop in your bucket. And that is not what Mark Gurman does. He is far more active at that. Right. I also think it's a little rose-colored glasses. Like Apple has always leaked. There have always been leaks all the way back to the very beginning. That has always been the case. And Apple has never been not only larger in terms of people who could leak, but more scrutinized than it has been over the last 15 years. Especially like there is no company that is tried to, be scrutinized about the secrets that are in there. And even so, they do occasionally surprise us, but then you also get reporters like Mark Gurman. I think it's more impressive that Mark Gurman has no competition. Like he has competition, but there's nobody like who's the Salieri to his Mozart, who's like also breaking Apple news a lot. The information is maybe the closest, but even then it's not. It's like almost all of the leaks that come out are from Mark Gurman. You get some supply chain leaks, Ming-Chi Kuo. There are some leakers in China. The information has some stories that they do, but like Gurman is way ahead. And that's actually a little surprising because there is so much focus on Apple because it's so huge and people want to know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's exciting.
It's an exciting time.
It's an exciting time.
Again, moments of transition.
John it is getting the, as we mentioned last week, the September 1st start date because that's just in the nick of time to announce
for the iPhone.
And apparently the Fold is kind of his oh, by the way, we got a name for it. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
The Fold, we'll call it that until we really reveal the name, is kind of his project, right? This was he shepherded this, according to the stories I've read, shepherded this along.
The story that's been repeated a couple different times, again, including that some of Gurman's coverage last week, was that it surprised me that the transition is happening so quickly. I mean, not that I'm a guesser, not an analyst, but I would have guessed that they would have had a longer period transition. But the story that's being reported is that quite intentionally, Tim is out on September 1st so that Ternus can hit the ground running with a very, very flashy, very, very hardware focused thing that he's been intimately involved in. So the coverage and the reportage, the messaging could be, this was something that exists largely because of his stewardship as the head of hardware, and also to put like a very, very high ticket, expensive item in the quarterly results so that whatever happens, he will have a really, really good first quarter. And in retrospect, that does make a lot of sense. Although I do hope that they give Tim a really good victory lap because he definitely deserves one.
Yeah. Well, I think he'll get one. I think he's leaving on a high note. Apple stock price is very high. Everything's firing on all cylinders. Well, and the AI is the only question mark. And I guess next month is when we're going to figure out what the plans are there. Right?
Yeah. Well, in June. It's still April. This is the longest April of all time.
But I feel like it's May already.
In June, I know. It's May. I know. It's still not.
It's May on Friday.
We'll know in like 6 weeks.
Yeah. We'll know in 6 weeks. Thank you. All right, we can say the name now. Ultra. Macworld Magazine has this scoop. Apple's Ultra roadmap confirmed. Felipe Esposito writing, iPhone, MacBook, and more on the way. They're going to call the Fold the iPhone Ultra without a number, according to Philippe, which makes sense because like the Air, this is going to be a perennial. There's also the MacBook Ultra, which is that M6 OLED we've been talking about, and that will be Ultra because it's going to be so much more expensive than the other MacBooks. And maybe there'll be other Ultras. I don't know, but it sounds like Apple. I mean, they own the trademark. They've had Ultra chips. They have an Ultra watch, so it won't be too much of a surprise, right? Did you say, Andy?
Only because like I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, I was like, how many cleaning products and shaving products and other like consumer house cleaners and like
I do believe I have a Gillette
that are
Ultra.
called the Ultra, right?
You're right.
And it's like it's one of those meaningless terms you attach to something to make it sound special. And in the end, they can call it, the history of product marketing is we will make up a word because we don't want to trademark something. It is meaningless. We shouldn't really fuss about it. But it's like it gets us back to where we've been for many years of okay. Does the word pro actually mean anything, or is it just a synonym for it's going to cost you, brother?
So according to the OED, Ultra was first used in 1815 by Byron, Southey, and Bentham from the French politics ultra-royaliste, extreme royalist, of course it has a Latin origin. And OED says in very common and steadily increasing use from about 1830. So it is not a new word. Ultraviolet, right? Ultrasound.
Dawn Ultra is a hell of a cleaner. And I'm not even joking about it.
Dawn Ultra?
Anything you're trying to clean, Dawn Ultra, on the r/cleaning subreddit, every solution is Dawn Ultra.
Yeah, he's pretty good, but he's very busy these days. Dawn Ultra.
Ultra is a Latin adverb
Spanish
and
nobleman.
preposition
Dawn Ultra.
that means beyond, on the other side, on the far side, past, over, and across. So,
I mean, look, there's a long tradition of us hearing Apple product name tags and being like, I don't know. And then you know what? They use them and they market them and they make it clear, and then everybody gets used to them, and they can mean like, because pro doesn't mean what it literally professional, right? Like there's an Apple Watch, Ultra, right? We've got that now. We've got all sorts of pro. There's a phone pro. How is it a professional phone? And the fact is, like, that's not what it means. It means something, but it's got a very specific kind of like tag.
It means money
in Apple's universe. Exactly right. And we all get over it. So like, I think an UGG today is perfectly reasonable, knowing that, 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 days after it gets announced, we'll all just shrug and be like, yeah, of course.
Of course. And Esposito says in Macworld, there'll probably be an iPad Ultra and a AirPods Ultra as well. There might be a whole luxury line.
I mean, maybe.
A leather-covered line of Apple stuff.
I like the idea because I think Apple, I don't mind the idea that Apple pushes, like with the iPhone 10, pushes the cutting edge and releases a product. Like if Apple is going to be restrained and has some features that they're like, we can't do that this year because it's going to be too expensive. I actually kind of don't mind if they have the ability to put that out at a higher end while also making all their other products available. I'm kind of okay with that. The idea that it gives them an out, a place where they can experiment with brand new stuff that will come down over time, but it gives it, because the alternative is they just don't release that product. And I don't like that.
No, I don't like that either. I will go back to the name for a second. The only thing I kind of take umbrage with a little bit, because you're exactly right, Jason. We will get used to the name.
Umbrage, from the Latin for shadow. Go ahead.
but it's but how is this going to be? Are we going to have a MacBook Ultra, M6 Max, whatever? Like this is where the naming becomes clunky, because we've added all these suffixes to the chip names and to the other things. And you're right, like MacBook Pro is ceased to have any sort of meaning, right? Because you have the 14-inch MacBook Pro, you've got like the base model, and then you've got the one that actually is the good one, and then you have like the Max chip versions and whatnot. And so that's where I do like roll my eyes a little bit, because I'm like, okay, we're now adding all these, various, like things to the name, and it doesn't roll off the tongue easily, but we will get used to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I agree with you 100%, Jason. Like I feel as though it'll legitimize itself if it means that, no, this isn't the same unit, but with more storage and more memory and a better camera. This is a almost completely revisualized. Like it would be prohibitive for us to make this at scale. We can only probably make a couple of million of these max, but we are going to make the maximal version of the iPhone, the maximal version of the iPad, the maximal version of an Apple Watch, and we will call it the Ultra. We're not expecting this to be a reasonable purchase for most people. Again, it'll just be, if it does become like the Pro, that will kind of bore me. I'm kind of more interested in the idea of in the iPad line using the Neo tag as, here is the one where we are going to expect you to be, we are making something, we're maximizing economy, and this is targeted at people that are willing to forego the ultraness of this device in order to be able to afford this thing, because the iPad absolutely needs some pruning and house cleaning. Because I have to remind myself, wait, is the iPad nothing the intro one, or is it the iPad Air because Air is smaller? Or I mean, that would be a line where adding Neo to the end of, here is the $329 iPad, works great. It's not going to be a replacement for your main device, but you can buy one for each of your kids, and they can have your own private experience, and it's built to the spec of an Apple quality product. So I would love to see an infestation of Neo. I'd love to see the Apple Watch Neo, for instance, the AirPods Neo. So when you walk into the store that I don't really have $300. I don't know how much the really, really good AirPods are. But I know that I don't have that kind of need for it. Show me the Neo first, and if that doesn't work, then I'll consider an upgrade.
The iPod is also, or sorry, the iPad, not the iPod. The iPad is a good example of, even though it's called the iPad Pro, what I'm talking about like having the Ultra line is like the iPad Pro. And we've talked about it here. It costs a lot of money, but it's got that tandem OLED display, and like it has so much amazing tech in it that, most people probably don't need if they're buying an iPad. iPad Air is a better fit probably than the Pro, but I'm glad the Pro exists. Right. And people buy it because they want the very best of, of whatever iPad they happen to be buying. But I like the idea of getting these product names. Like, they're never going to be perfect. People who write about this and talk about it like us are always obsessed with sort of getting everything in a perfect line where every product lines up and all makes sense. And like they don't release all the products at once. It's always in flux. It's always a little bit of a mess. But I do like the idea of maybe saying, these adjective-less, tag-less product names are a little confusing. It's like, if they had called the MacBook Neo the MacBook, we would have been like a MacBook. Well, no, not the MacBook, just a MacBook, like the MacBook or the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air. And instead, we can say a MacBook like the Neo or the Pro or the Air, and it's clearer. I kind of like that better. Maybe they need to get those tags on everything. I think that might be a better thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think at this point, I think that originally, like when the first MacBook, going back to 2006, that fit exactly where it needed to be. And then I think that the first kind of original sin was the 2015 MacBook, reintroducing that name when it was a different class of product, right? And kind of repurposing the Air into what had been the MacBook role. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think that if you're going to go down that kind of sequential line, that's kind of how I feel about the Pro lineup with the MacBook Pro right now, where it's like, okay, it gets a little bit confusing. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind. Look, as long as, and I'm even okay with them having like super high end or very expensive, machines that are not set to appeal to the mass populace. What I do hope, and I'm not overly concerned about this, especially not on the phone at first, the laptop maybe a little bit, is that it won't become an excuse for Apple to try to, push up, average selling price and not bringing things back down, over time and trickling down like that. That's the only thing I don't want to see, is to be like, oh, we used to have these features.
I've seen a lot in the financial press is how well orchestrated this handoff is. The timing, the way they've handled it. Tim's going to get a farewell at WWDC. Ternus is going to get an introduction in September for the big, the most important launch. He'll also get the most important quarter as his first quarter for financial results. And there's according to Bloomberg's Power On newsletter, Gurman's Sunday newsletter, there's a pretty strong lineup, just as there was, it turns out, for Tim Cook when he took over. There's a pretty strong lineup of products about to hit the pipeline. Yeah. Ternus at the town hall in which he was introduced to Apple employees last week said Apple's about to change the world and described the company's pipeline as the most exciting of his career, according to Gurman. They've got the smart home hub, which is that home pod with a screen. Yeah, I know. It always is. The tabletop robot, which is the home hub with an arm. So there's one with a screen and one with a limb. It's not a limb. It can move the screen around. I don't know why they call it a limb.
It's like the iMac G4.
It's the Gybo.
It moves itself.
Security device. We've heard rumors about this, and Mark is kind of confirming that there will be a privacy-focused home security system. I wonder about that. It seems like a long shot. Smart glasses. We do know that Tim was very excited about that and has been for a while, and that's a hot category. AirPods with AI and perhaps low-resolution cameras. And a pendant. Gurman says Apple's working on a small circular device with a computer vision camera system that can capture data and feed it to an iPhone's AI and Siri features. You know, people have tried this before. This is something Gordon Bell was pushing with his, what did he call it? The meme? Can't remember. He had a name for it. I remember talking to Gordon about it. And I always loved this idea, but this really is going to take a society that is just suddenly so used to being on camera at all times that they can tolerate it. I mean, people didn't like the Ray-Bans, the Meta Ray-Bans. Yeah. If you got an eye around your neck.
Right. I mean, if anybody can pull it off, it would be Apple, but I don't expect the reception to be like people to be falling all over themselves for it, because you have other AI pendants. Like, and I mean, especially
they're with microphones though, not cameras. Yeah.
Totally. But you know, having that idea, well, didn't what was the Humane? Didn't the Humane pen, didn't that have a camera?
And
there was a projector.
There was a camera that came out a few years ago, and it didn't do well because they realized that the pictures it was taking were not at eye level. But
this is part of the problem too. I mean, I don't know if any of you remember, but Casey Neistat had like a thing like this like 10 years ago. It's called Beam that CNN then bought for some reason. And I remember having a conversation with Casey at like one of the launch events, and I was like, I totally understand what your idea is. Have you realized that where this is placed for 50% of the population is in a really inopportune spot and doesn't fit well, like on your chest, you know?
So I found this story about Gordon Bell. This goes back 20 years. His wife, Gwen Bell, had Alzheimer's, and he wanted to help her remember stuff. So he created something called My Life Bits when he was at Microsoft. It came out of Microsoft Research in England. The Sense Cam that was part of My Life Bits took a picture every 30 seconds. If you walk up to a person, it senses a change in infrared, triggers it, says, oh, you're standing in front of somebody, captures that, and then remembers it in a database so that every 30 seconds, there's a picture, every keystroke on your computer, every mouse click, basically all of your life. He was motivated to help Gwen, but I think he also had the idea that someday people will want this. And I've wanted this ever since I interviewed Gordon about this 20 years ago.
Yeah, and Google also had a project that was kind of similar to
that was
Beam.
The one.
It was like just like they did something legitimately kind of revolutionary by having a cardboard VR setup for a phone. Basically, their idea is, well, what if we just have a holder for the phone so people who can benefit from a phone camera as an assistive device to explain, here's what's in front of you, here's where the traffic is, here's the product that you're holding right now. Just simply wear it like around your chest so that you can basically where the camera is, that you can give presence to that. We've talked about this in different ways before, but I do think that I love the idea of Apple doing a pendant, possibly mostly because they are the people who can do two things extremely right. They can get the privacy right, and they can get the hardware right. The manufacturing of this idea of trying to do a pin that is not going to get over hot. It's not going to last only like 2 hours on battery. It's not going to be wireless happy. It's actually going to be practical. And I do love the idea of a pin format, because the idea of a camera in front of you is super, super useful in so many situations. And in every situation in which it is not appropriate to be wearing a camera, you take it, you unclip it from the magnet, you flip it over, you clip it back on the magnet with the camera facing towards your chest. And now it's just simply a microphone. If there's a company that can do this correctly, I think it's Apple. But I'm not 100% sure that it can actually be done well.
But can they do the software?
Yeah, this is the
problem. This is all incumbent on Siri, right? I mean, if that's what the rumor is. And I'm just going to be totally candid. right now, like unless like even if you shove Gemini into it, like I don't know if they have that part of it, because I agree with you. I think they can make the privacy argument whether that's a cope or not. I think that they can definitely make the hardware not terrible. But can you have a good software experience?
They can. I think they have enough time. I keep saying this, and I don't know. They have enough time to try to pull that off, because for reasons that are kind of hard for me to explain my thinking. I do think they have plenty of time to figure that out if that's where they want to go. Also, every time that they publish AI papers, and like there's an AI conference going on, which you see like the AI group or the machine learning group published, hey, here are all the papers that we're publishing for this conference. Almost all of them have to do with, you know what, you don't need a large model to do this, or this is you can do inference without having to have a huge amount of compute. Basically, the standard way of doing things, and you'd probably know better than I how valid these arguments are, but everything that they're focusing their research on, or at least their published research on, seems to be on, we can do things on a tiny little power sipping device without many resources that are not going to have the same sort of requirements as the larger models and the larger plans that other people are doing. So it's something they're very, very interested in. Again, I don't know how. You're right. They do have to get the software exactly right. The problem is that I don't know. I still don't know how the average consumer balances the difference between I want privacy versus I want this to be as functional as possible. Where is the middle ground that they're willing to accept? And I don't know what that is.
Gurman also says that Ternus had a high priority for a foldable iPad, a roughly 20-inch foldable iPad. He says it may end up being a wacky experiment that doesn't see the light of day, according to several people who have worked on it. But it was great. A Ternus priority.
I mean, I actually feel this way. We're talking about the pendant too, or the pin, or whatever wacky. It is. Yeah. First off, like socially, is that going to work? I think Apple doesn't. Here's the thing: Apple has let things go, like the glasses, and then regretted it because they got behind. I think something like a pendant, like either they'll do it right and people will accept it, or people will learn to accept it because everybody else is doing it, or they'll put it out and nobody accepts it, in which case they're not behind, right? Because they didn't mess it up. I think
to do this,
you can't sit on the sideline with something that might be a thing. So I think that's important. And this folding iPad weird, like this is the thing that's like, it's like a laptop, but it's an iPad, which I all the reports about this that Mark Gurman has done, I don't understand what this product is. It doesn't make sense. But you know what? Why not? First off, they investigate stuff like this all the time. It's surprising that this got reported on, but like, obviously they're experimenting with it, and that John Ternus is intrigued by the possibility. And like, why wouldn't you explore that? The question is like, either do they figure it out and go, oh, I see why people would want this, or they go, and they have the discipline to just walk away and say, this didn't work out. But like this is their job, right? Like we don't usually see into this part, but they need to try this stuff. They need to be planning for like, what does this new bit of technology enable us to do? And is that a thing that makes sense? And sometimes you can only do that by trying it and learning, oh no, this doesn't make sense. Let's not. And that's okay. I think it's okay for them to walk away if it seemed like a cool idea, but in the end, they can't figure out why anyone would buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The only thing I would kind of push back on that a little bit is like you look at the Vision Pro, which is not a success at all. Which I don't know why they're continuing down that realm. And I think all of us would agree that they probably would have been better suited pivoting from that into some other areas earlier. So on the one hand, like I totally agree with you. I would love to see them be able to experiment more, even if it doesn't work. I think the problem is like when we look at things like the Vision Pro, when that's released, and I go back to, I think the failure of the Vision Pro was completely in how it was positioned, and that was completely Apple's fault. I think if Apple had positioned it as a dev kit that everyone can buy and kind of an experiment, I think that the reception would have been better. I think we probably would have had more adoption. We might even have more apps. The level set would have been correct. But the problem is because Apple doesn't typically experiment, even though I agree with you, I think they should do more of that. When their products come out, they have to sell us this vision of this holistic ecosystem and all of these use cases. And then if it doesn't live up to that, people have a hard time kind of, being like, well, that was a flop, or that didn't work, or that wasn't that. Like there is this expectation that if Apple is going to release something, they're going to kind of be in it for the long haul. And I don't know how they change that perception. Maybe the way they do that is just by experimenting more, and maybe getting people used to being like, okay, the HomePod is not going to be long for this world until we bring it back randomly, a few years later. I don't know.
Mr. Pro's an interesting point, just because like it's a developer kit and an experiment. And I firmly believe that Apple should have the ability to launch something publicly that is not meant to be marketed as the next huge thing.
I agree, but they need to market it that way.
But they can't. They seem to have failed at that. In hindsight, what I would say about the Vision Pro is, first off, I think it was a misguided product direction, and that some of that goes back to Johnny Ive. And that if you can only sell it for $3,500, you probably shouldn't sell it, and you should wait. Like, what was the rush? And I think the rush was they were looking at Meta and they're like, oh man, we got to catch Meta. And now you look at Meta and you're like, oh no, you did not need to do that. And you'd be better off holding this technology another 5 or 10 years and using it then. But I think this is an opportunity for a new leadership to say, when we evaluate products like this, we either need to find different ways to launch them. Like, should Vision OS have just been a developer kit only available to developers, and everybody would talk about it, but like it wouldn't be judged as a product because it doesn't make sense as a product, or trying things out and killing them. I don't know. It is an opportunity for Ternus, the hardware guy, to maybe have a different take on what they say yes to. And it could be like more strict of like, say no to more things, or it could be, can we find a way to say yes to some weird things and see what happens?
It's to the point of the Vision Pro, Apple stepped on its own on a rake by they did not position it as this is a development kit, this is an experiment. They said this is you want to be first in line for the next huge platform,
and that was the problem.
Everything.
Huge mistake.
But the thing that the idea of like a laptop with 2 screens, this is one of the very few things that I really do envy about the Windows world, that there's so much competition that there's several companies are saying, what if we do put a 2-screen laptop in the lineup? And it's actually the ones that I've seen are actually very, very compelling if you need like a mobile two-screen display. It's wonderful. But the Apple's problem is that they have to make this laptop for the entire world of Apple, like desktop Mac OS users. And they can't, if they have a slot available for another model of MacBook, they have to make sure they can sell it to as many people as possible. So they're kind of hamstrung there, because if they only sell 1 million of these, even if they say overtly, hey, this is a boutique product, we really want to see this exist, and also this is a good test of technologies that we might be able to put into future more mainstream devices, everyone's going to say, yeah, but wow, what a huge flop that was, what a stupid idea. It's very, very difficult to be in John Ternus's position, where even I'm guilty of this, of saying I really want to see them take more chances, but nonetheless, if they take a chance in a way that I didn't have a cookie that day. I'm a little sleep deprived, and so rather than saying, "Wow, that was actually some interesting ideas," the implementation was off, but it's a very, very interesting idea. Saying, "Oh my God, why is Apple wasting their time on this?" And John Ternus is going to be a test of his bravery. Is going to be, I think this is a great idea, and I think we should do this. And I know that in the next year, every single, not even misstep, but even half step that I take is going to be criticized 10 times worse than anything I did, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think that's what's good for Apple's story, Apple's product line, and Apple's users.
All right. Well, it's going to get interesting because there is some competition, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, but we got to take a break first. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko, Christina Warren, smart people here. Jason Snell with a great conversation. But first, a word from our sponsor. Then we'll talk about Mr. Ming-Chi Kuo. This episode of MacBreak Weekly brought to you by Scribe. Teams don't usually hit scaling problems because of headcount or budget. It's because the way things actually get done isn't documented anywhere. And writing it all down manually just doesn't happen. So everyone ends up doing the same task slightly differently. The tools don't get fully adopted. And when somebody leaves, that knowledge tends to leave with them too, which is exactly the problem today's sponsor, Scribe, was built to fix. Scribe is a workflow AI platform that captures any workflow in real time and turns it into documentation automatically. No manual writing, no manual screenshots, no starting from scratch every time someone new joins a team. Trusted by 80,000 plus enterprises, including nearly half of the Fortune 500. You just turn on the extension and do the process as you normally would. Scribe builds the guide as you go, capturing every click, every step, every screenshot automatically. Scribe automatically redacts sensitive information, names, account numbers, emails from every screenshot. And as an admin, you can enforce this across your entire team and feel confident that nothing slips through the crack. Anyone following this process can launch real-time on-screen guidance that walks them exactly where to click, step by step, inside the actual tool. It's there the moment the Scribe is created and ensures everyone does critical processes correctly. Scribe will suggest improvements to the underlying workflow, not just document it. Once you see how a process is actually being done, you can identify where steps are redundant, where people are getting stuck, and where things could be automated or simplified. It's not just capturing how work gets done, it's helping you do it better. To book a personalized enterprise demo, visit scribe.how/MacBreak. That's SCRIBE.how/MacBreak. We thank him so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. All right, Ming-Chi Kuo. Now, first thing I should say, OpenAI, which had been on a tear right up till about yesterday, is now, people are starting to look at him like, you guys are going to run out of money, aren't you? There's going to be some problems here. We got some problems coming up. There's an IPO coming up. People are starting to look askance a little bit, especially with Anthropic's success. However, they are working, and maybe, I don't know if this is the Johnny Ive product that they paid $3 billion for, or if this is something else. They're working on a smartphone. Ming-Chi Kuo says OpenAI is set to redefine smartphones. MediaTek, which, by the way, I want to say, I was talking to Jeff Atwood the other day. He said, this MediaTek processor is amazing. I said, I know. Terrible name, but they actually have a processor that's on a Chromebook, which I actually purchased. So has he, and it's amazing. It's a really good ARM implementation, very impressive. So MediaTek, while that may sound like, second tier processor manufacturer, it is, I guess, pretty good. Qualcomm's involved, and Luxshare, which is a contract builder, contract manufacturer, are key to the AI agent phone. So Qualcomm and MediaTek are going to do the processor. Luxshare will do this KISS system co-design and manufacture. Kuo says mass production expected in 2028. And I have a feeling that whether Apple knew about this or not, this is why they're working so hard and fast, because they know the competition's breathing down their neck. And their number one product, the one that keeps them alive right now, is the iPhone. AI agent redefines the smartphone, says Kuo. Users are not trying to use a pile of apps. No apps. They're trying to get tasks done and fulfill needs to the phone. It says, I made a smartphone interface concept design shown at the end of this post. Comparison with today's model using the iPhone as example. So you basically talk to the phone, you tell it what you want to do. This is wasn't this the idea behind the Rabbit R1, which had a very early Android, old Android operating system. I have one. Mm-hmm. And the idea was you talk to it. You don't need an app. It will figure out what to do.
And now the technology is actually at that point where you can do more of that. Whereas when the R1 came out, agents weren't even a thing, and they were really running VMs in the back end that were like running like Playwright scripts.
It's pretty good now. In fact, you can run OpenClaw.
Yeah, no, I know. Now it's like several years later. It's finally okay. And look, I paid $100 for it. I don't care. I'm just always their marketing wasn't it.
It's cute.
It is cute, but honestly, I've been expecting this. I don't know what it will look like, but I've been expecting this for
somebody was going to do it, if not OpenAI.
Yeah, sure. Because I've been expecting a phone. I've been expecting like an operating system, because you can just kind of see the direction things go in. Where, if I think most of us agree that AI, for better or worse, is the next big computing paradigm, and it is transformative in the same way that smartphones were. And that doesn't mean that all the changes will be good, and that doesn't mean that everything old goes away, but it does mean, I think, like a very clear rethinking of what the old way of using your phone, of getting things done was. And now you could potentially put things into a new perspective, and whether this is task-based, what is this about, but being about, okay, I want to get this done. I don't need to worry about, rather than there's an app for that. No, I can just, tell the machine what I want it to do, and it will figure it out for me. There's something compelling there. And I think that, like Apple, Google, all the incumbents have to be aware of this, because certainly whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic or some startup that we've never heard of who's going to come in and try to own this space, this is an area that I think is ripe for disruption and will be, because if we look at the last 20 years of kind of the modern smartphone era, right? Okay, well, what do we look like? What does the next 20 years look like? And I don't think that it is a grid of apps on, a vertical screen. I just don't think that it is.
Yeah, I think, I was reading his post on X, and I actually said, oh, really? You really think that's really? And after a little bit more thought, though, I kind of put myself in the mode of everybody who could not imagine a smartphone that does not have a physical keyboard on it. But as soon as you showed them one, okay, that now makes sense. And then all of a sudden, all the companies that had built all of their software based on the idea of having a physical keyboard and physical control buttons, they were not in a position to throw away everything they've done and rebuild it based on multi-touch. And if AI represents that kind of threat to Apple and to Android and to all these other platforms, it is because we can imagine a layer of AI that interacts with the user and the user interface and exists alongside it. It is hard for us to imagine one that replaces it entirely, and it would seem to be almost impossible for a legacy operating system to be rewired to be an AI first user interface as opposed to a secondary interface. So yeah, I'd love to see it happen. And I admit that I'm not going to fully understand how well that experience would be until I actually see one. Unfortunately, I lack that kind of imagination. I mean, I still think about all the different things that I use for my that we use smartphones for, and not all of them is I'm going to give you a task which I would like you to perform. It's, hey, I just want to listen to some music, or gee, I wonder if my friends have posted anything on their blogs today. I just want to take a look at that. I don't understand how that interaction would work without a standard user interface, and I don't understand a scenario in which I would prefer to ask an AI assistant to please show me Jason's latest blog post on Macworld or 6colors. I would more appreciate that, hey, look, I've got a shortcut here that I simply tap this button and now I see this as RSS. So lack of imagination is the killer for almost every industry. It's not that things can't be done, it's just people can't imagine how it would work. And it would take a company like OpenAI or Anthropic to basically create the revolution because they have no baggage.
I think the danger is that it's not just lack of imagination that's involved here, but it's also sort of like overestimation is a problem, because I am also intrigued by this. I like, on the one hand, there are the streets are littered with the bodies of companies that thought they could build their own smartphone.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, one of my arguments about why Apple has a good chance of surviving an AI transition is because they're so good at making smartphone hardware. And that's an argument for the smartphone as a piece of hardware, which is what the counter argument would be, is like, yeah, maybe OpenAI does need to make a smartphone because a pin is not going to do it. And you're going to either have to, if you don't make your own smartphone, you're going to have to play ball with Apple or Google. Whereas if you make your own, you can do whatever. Something you said there, Andy, this is what I keep coming back to, is it's so easy in a way to say, well, in the future, we just won't have what we have now. We'll have a new thing and everybody will use the new thing and that'll be all it is. True. And it's more complicated than that, right? Like, the one that I always get is like, well, in the future, we'll just talk and things will, we'll talk to something and it'll talk back to us. And it's like, I have so many devices in my life that I can talk to. I do not talk to them. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want them to make noise. I want to look at a screen. Now, I would also say with AI, here's a good example of this. We don't know how good it's going to get, but what I would say is, AI has proven to be amazing, especially at coding, right? And you can build your own apps. And that's true. And I could see a level where you're like, look, this is what I want you to do. And your phone kind of like just does it and makes an interface for you. That said, I am skeptical that most people are going to want to have to convince their phones to make things in a way that pleases them, as opposed to having somebody, perhaps a developer or what we think of now as a developer who might not be using traditional tools, to have some thought into like, here's a way you could do this thing, and you build an interface that I might prefer to use. So like, I feel like there's complexity here, and it's not like we're going to toss it all out and replace it with something new. Because I think we're a little over. Sometimes the hype gets people excited. It's like, in the future there'll be nothing, and you can just talk and things will happen. And it's like, I'm not sure people actually want to be that rootless. I think it's change, but not necessarily wholesale. I do think it, you know, if I was OpenAI, I'd be interested in making a smartphone, because I would think, I don't want to be under Apple's thumb. I don't want to be under Google's thumb. And I personally, Jason, am super bullish on the fact that the smartphone is a great object that people are going to want to keep in their pockets for lots of reasons. So if that's all true, and I can't work with Apple, I got to make this thing myself. I get it.
Yeah, you need a display, I think, because again, I'm totally with you. I'm not going to be simply speaking to do everything I want. I like the idea of AI generated interfaces that are custom to the task. Where again, if I do tap the button to read your feeds, it will generate a user interface that's appropriate to that moment and that task, and it'll learn how to make that interface better and better and better. But to your point, I mean, that is an excellent point. You think about it, the design of a laptop has not really changed fundamentally in 35 years. The control, if someone from 1930 were to jump into a car made in 2026, they would understand how to operate that car, because that control interface and user interface has not substantially changed in 100 years. The difference becomes we keep the things that continue to work. We throw away the things that are no longer relevant. We don't give that industry 5 years of advance. Oh, by the way, in 5 years' time, nobody's going to want that keyboard on your iPhones, on your phone. So try to figure that out. It's a trial by fire, and that's the thing that I didn't like about that tweet, was the idea of this being a huge, like, disruptive sort of device, as opposed to an interesting alternative that people are going to take a look at. But again, if someone does crack the idea of a completely AI interface forward phone, it's harder to imagine Google cracking it or Apple cracking it than a company like OpenAI or Anthropic. Again, only because they don't have to protect their investment.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, that's why Apple was able to disrupt the smartphone industry, is they didn't have the existing, baggage of mobile devices, the way that, you had Palm and you had BlackBerry and you had Windows Mobile, and you had these things built on certain paradigms. And so they were kind of locked into what those things were. And now the two people that really the two players that really pushed it forward were Android, which Google acquired, and what Apple was doing with iOS. Now, I don't think smartphones are going away, and I don't think that user interfaces are going away, but I do think the way that we interact with our devices are already changing. And you already see this just in the last couple of years. The way that people use agents, interact with chatbots is very demonstrably different. The way that people go about seeking out information is very different now than it was 3 years ago. And people who are coming up on these tools now don't have that baggage, of, okay, well, I'm going to go to Google for these things, and I'm going to go to my RSS feeds and go to my blogs for this, right? They're much more used to asking questions or interfacing directly. I don't know what the future will look like, but I do feel strongly that it will be different. And I also feel strongly that the people who will be best primed to be able to do the disruption are people who are not, to your point, encumbered by the baggage that they have. Moreover, the only way this really works, and this is whether it's with Google or Apple or anyone else, is if you own the entire stack. And so you need all that information. You need all that context. You need to own the entire stack. This can't just be a layer that you license. This has got to be something where me as the user, I agree that I have my very personal relationship with my device, and I'm willing to give it all of my info. And in return, it's going to give me what it gives me. But it's not something that you can just slap on, which I think was the problem of like the littered bodies of smartphones past, the Amazon devices, the Facebook phones, all those things. They didn't work because they didn't own the whole thing. They didn't own the whole relationship. And I think that AI assistants, again, for good or bad, I'm not saying it's a positive thing. People have very strong relationships with those tools already, where they're already sharing their information with them. And so if you can take that and then, modify that into like what a, smartphone of 2030 or 2035 looks like, I think it's interesting.
And to take the Apple angle here, what I would say is if I were at Apple, I just said what I would do if I was at OpenAI. If I were at Apple, I mean, I would be looking really heavily. And there were some rumors, Mark Gurman talked about that they were actually looking into this in a Vision Pro context. And I wonder if they're looking more broadly now, which is you own the full stack, including the development tools. Now, your LLM, you got Gemini now. Great. But like, if I were at Apple thinking about this, that's what I would be thinking is I want, since I've got all the APIs, they've got app intents, they've got Xcode, start thinking, or continue thinking, please have already started, about ways in which your AI agents can build interface elements, build things that are like apps but aren't apps, that allow users to use AI tools to build elements and add them to the collection. Maybe it's to add app intents so that then when you ask your device to do something, you've already taught it what that means, and now it can just execute it. Because they do have the advantage of having their development environment, their API set, all the way down to their chips. And if they embrace the idea that one of the new paradigms going forward is going to be something that's not just a pre-baked app from a developer, but might be things that are kind of generated on the fly or are presets created in a process and then executed when the user wants, they could do this. It's not impossible for Apple to embrace this idea because they've got all the ingredients. It just breaks the App Store paradigm, and they have to be willing to do that. And what we've seen in other areas that, granted, are not technical areas, they're more financial power base areas, they've been very reluctant to do literally anything that breaks the App Store paradigm. But I think this might be the one.
Yeah. And when you put it that way, Google is probably the only company on the playing field that has even more of the stack than Apple does, because they designed their own tensor chips. They've got the operating system. They've got the cloud compute everywhere. They're already, and basically they've already built their business
same agent.
Yeah. They basically built their business around like, so long as more people use our thing, we win. So let's help everyone use our thing. We'll help. We would be great if they use our AI based phone. It'll be great if they use our AI agent on whatever phone they want to bring. It's it's always fun to live in these times of transition where you can imagine anything happening or none of that being everything you can imagine being insufficient for what the landscape is going to be 5 years from now. I'm humbled at trying to figure. Again, that's why I say I'm a guesser, not an analyst.
Yeah.
I will stand by my guess. I will not stand by my analysis.
Being humble, it's a good time.
Money.
It's a good time to be humble, but I find it funny that like we entered a kind of smartphone malaise because the smartphone is just it's so revolutionary as a product, and it's gone everywhere, and it's changed the culture and society and all of that. But like then there was a period where it was like, okay, and now we're starting to see like, well, maybe this will change. I think it's very funny though that it's the app paradigm that I think I'm wondering about more than it is the fact that you want a device with a really nice screen and a big battery and a great network connection that's on your person, right? I think that I am kind of a believer, but the rest of it, it's kind of up for grabs. It's exciting.
No, yeah, I fully agree. I think the app paradigm is what is up for disruption. But no, I don't think that at this point anybody is going to be, and I think that if you'd ask somebody in the early mid-1990s when cell phones were first starting to kind of gain popularity, I think even then people would have been like, yes, this is going to be a thing we will have for a very long time. I don't think that's, like, I don't see it becoming glasses. I don't see it becoming pendants. Yeah. It's going to be a phone. But what we do in the phone and how the there's an app for that, I do think that is going to change. And I think it's already changing.
I will say
go ahead, Andy.
I will say one thing that's kind of relevant. I was actually thinking about this the other day, that this is definitely, I bought, every time I buy a new phone, it really is very, very close between sticking with Android and switching to iPhone, because they're both excellent phones. The operating systems are both excellent. They have some nuances that are largely a matter of taste and what you want out of a phone. The last time I spent like $1,100 on a smartphone, it was for the Pixel 6 Pro. And the reason why was because of that tensor chip, because I was intrigued by Google thinking we are actually going to be making AI part of the hardware because we think AI is going to be really, really big in the future. And then subsequently, again, things got closer and closer. And again, if I bought a phone last year, it would have been very, very close between the two. This year, however, where I really am kind of urgently saying, okay, look, I'm going to lose support for this phone by probably this year. This is probably the last version of Android I'm going to get for the Pixel 6. So I should really buy a really, really good phone sometime this year. I have to say that I'm more intrigued by what Google's game plan is going to be in terms of maximizing AI on the hardware with the services, with the operating system than I am with Apple. I think with Apple, it's going to be certainly a lot more relevant by the time I buy my next phone after this. But I have to say that Apple is really going to have to pull the damnedest rabbit out of their hat with the iPhone 18 or the iPhone 19 to get me to switch back to iPhone at this point.
What's really clear is that OpenAI wants to be an operating system, a platform. So everybody wants to be a platform.
Sure. It's just easier said than done. I think that's
very difficult
from their perspective. Is they have to start from kind of nothing and like saying, well, we've got an LLM and some stuff. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff, but it's not a piece of hardware and it's not an operating system.
In my opinion, what they're betting on is that people want to be able to talk to their devices and have them do stuff. What they miss is there are stakeholders, the app makers, who want to own the data more closely. I mean, there's already a fight over AI ingesting content, AI stealing traffic from web pages. They're disintermediating all of this stuff, and they're suddenly saying, no, come to us and we'll handle it. But that is not what the content creators, it's not what the app makers, it's not what the businesses they're dealing with want, because they lose access to their customers.
It's also not a moat because every smartphone you can talk to and execute AI
And that's the other side of it, is what is going to stop Apple from doing this? Nothing. And Apple can do it in a more graceful way by having an AI and Google, right, on Android. They still have the apps, but you have an AI agent layer that manipulates the apps. You don't need to get rid of the apps. You just need a layer. Also, and Apple probably will debut that this fall, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And also, if people already have relationships with OpenAI as a chatbot, with Gemini as a chatbot, with Claude as a chatbot, it's going to take some doing to convince them. By the way, you should fire this personal assistant. That the training period was really, really horrible, but now that they've been in this job for a couple of years, they really know you very, very well. You know how to interact with it. It's going to take a lot to convince somebody, please fire that person. And here's someone who just came out of out of college, who has no job experience from a company that really isn't very good at training these people yet. And please develop a relationship with this one too. There are a lot of variables for Apple to navigate.
So I understand why OpenAI would do this. I just think this is more in their interest than its users. They got to pull the lever of every single slot machine they can possibly get their hands on at this point. Yeah, I completely understand why they're doing this. I am a little skeptical about their ability to kick Apple off the top of the hill on this one.
It would also be, you have to think about like other parts of like for a smartphone for lock-in. And again, I fully understand why they're doing this. I'm sure they're also looking at desktop operating systems. You need to have kind of this whole stack of things.
It's true on the desktop too, right? You just want to talk to it. But I will, as somebody who has been developing my own agent to do that, and I love the idea. In fact, one of the things I'm really working hard on is getting it so that it can listen to me everywhere. And I can say, hey, Kenobi, book a Uber for us on Friday. And it can just do it. I wonder, first of all, most people don't have the technical skills to do that, but I wonder if people really want that. Amazon's trying to do that with the Echo. I wonder, do people really want that? Is that something people understand and want? You think?
I don't know. I think it depends, because I go back and forth about it myself. Like I personally could automate a whole lot more of my life than I do, and then I'm just too much of a control freak, and I don't necessarily want to trust it.
Home automation.
Yes.
Everybody wants home automation. Oh man, this is going to be huge. And then only the geekiest people did it, and even they are going, oh, what a pain in the ass.
But if you can set it up easily,
just give me a button.
But if you can set it up easily, and if it actually works, which is the big thing, that's the big thing. If it works, it can be really, really powerful.
It'll work eventually.
This is the dream, right? The dream is you teach an agent to this is, I mean, we all do this. If you're using like Claude Code or whatever, you do this thing, right? You say, I want to do this thing, and it tries it, and you're like, no, you need it. And you become like a product manager, and you say, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, and then you're going to run this, or it builds a script that runs.
It's an intern.
And you get it to do the way that you want. And then the next step is, in all of these device interfaces we've got, it's like, okay, I've now taught you how to do X. When I ask you to do X, you now know how to do it. Remember that forever, and have it go, yep, got it, Jason, no problem. And then the next time, the next 1,000 times I need to do it, I say, hey, do X. And it's like, got it. And right. But what happens a lot now is that most people are not comfortable spending cycles in Claude Code or whatever to get to be a product manager. And that's why I think there's still going to be a place for programmers or developers or what you ever want to call it, because those are the people who are going to have to hold in their minds the structure and know how to talk to other databases and all of that to have it be friendly. Now, maybe it'll be more like App Intense, where it'll be less about the UI and more about like structuring all the data and thinking about how people want to interact. But like, that's the big leap for me is that not everybody's going to want to do that, but also I think it would be pretty cool to get to the point where all I have to do is describe what I want to happen to an agent, to a voice agent or whatever. And once we both agree that it works, it now just does that every time I ask it. That would be really nice.
There are 3 levels here. Level 1 is that I ask it to make me a coffee and it remembers how I like my coffee. We're nearly at level 2, where it understands that, it's 9:04 a.m. and he usually wants coffee at 9:04 a.m. And so when I get to my desk, there's a hot coffee waiting for me. Level 3, which is what everyone wants, is that, it's 2:12 in the afternoon and he rarely has coffee now, but I sense that he will really want a coffee right now. So I'm at least going to ask him, or at least I'm going to have that waiting for him. That's what the desire is, to again have an assistant that's so well trained that I don't even have to ask anymore. It knows what its job is and it gets to be a little bit proactive. Although that is such a big leap between level 2 and level 3, because I made you a coffee and I also deleted our entire customer database in a way that it's impossible to ever recover. Is there anything else I could do for you today, Andy?
We're going to take a break and come back. We have lots more to talk about. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Anako, Jason Snell, Christina Warren. It's nice to have smart people here discussing this. I hope Apple's listening, and OpenAI too. I think we brought up some interesting points.
We're available. I don't know. We are actually available.
A low consultation fee.
We're giving away all our great ideas on a podcast.
I know.
What is happening?
What is wrong with you guys?
Please consult with us. We will be consultants.
I want to show you. This is so cool. Our sponsor for this portion of the program is The Mill, which Lisa and I got in November, long before the advertising. I want to show you, since it's been running in November, we have diverted over 372 pounds of food scraps from the landfill. Is that awesome? To be fair, I didn't expect that a kitchen appliance would be the thing that changed how I feel about food scraps or my house in general. But the Mill food recycler is something Lisa and I just can't live without. We love it. And funny, because Lisa will say, well, how much food have we recycled so far? I'll say, 372 pounds, honey. Love it. The food waste is gone. The smell is gone. Mill just took care of it. Mill. It's the odorless, effortless, fully automated food recycler. Everything goes in there. Potato peels, avocado pits, chicken bones, even dairy. On the app, they'll tell you what you can put in there, and it's pretty much everything. I think big, meaty rib bones don't go in there, but almost everything else can go in the Mill. And then what we have it do, and you set this up, we have it at 9 p.m. I know because I hear the click. At 9 p.m., while you sleep, the Mill quietly transforms those food scraps into nutrient-rich, shelf-stable grounds. No mess, no smells, no fruit flies. Mill can process up to 10 pounds overnight. By the way, that's a lot. It's easily, more than we would ever create in a day. Even when Lisa is making a big salad, we get a lot of chopped up stuff. It goes right in there. And then the thing is, it gets it down to such a small size, you can go for weeks before you even have to think about emptying it. You can use the grounds in your garden and add them to your curbside compost, or Mill can even pick them up and get them to a small farm for you. I think in the earliest days, Mill, they were using it as chicken feed. Chickens love it. Mill turns a huge climate problem into a simple daily habit you can actually stick with, and it really makes a difference in the kitchen. And you can see your impact. You saw mine. The Mill app tracks how much food you're keeping out of landfills, and Mill has already helped its customers put over 15 million pounds of food to good use. The Mill's sleek, it's beautiful, looks great in any kitchen. We have it actually, it looks just like that picture right there by the island. So whenever we're chopping and working on the island there, we just slide, the leftovers right into the Mill. When we're done with dinner, we scrape it right into the Mill. Mill offers a 90-day risk-free trial. So there's if you don't absolutely love it, you can just send it back. Right now, try Mill risk-free for 90 days and get $75 off at mill.com/MBW and use code MBW. That's $75 off at mill.com/MBW and use code MBW. I will say that I'm the one who has the Mill, and I really love it. Lisa and I both really love it. mill.com/MBW. Actually, we love it so much, we said, you got to advertise because I want to talk about it. I love this thing. 372 pounds of trash diverted from the landfill. Thank you, Mill. Let's see. What else? Well, we can talk about the rumor mill if you want. We talked a little bit about the iPhone 18's camera. This interesting story in 9 to 5 Mac, Ryan Christoffel. iPhone 18's new specs might bring subtle regressions to cut costs. We've been talking a lot about the supply chain issues caused by a variety of things, AI data centers, tariffs. So Apple, he says, this is speculation, might make the display and chip downgrades to cut costs. And actually, inspired by a Weibo leaker, Fixed Focus Digital, who said the 18 will be launching later than usual. We've heard that also. The 18 and 18E will debut simultaneously, the leaker said. Now, normally, the 18 would come first in the fall, and the 18E would come later, right? In the middle of the year, the following year. Is that right? Am I thinking of Google's?
No, it's the same thing. It's like 6 months later.
Yeah.
So it's what we've seen.
6 months later. Okay.
Yeah.
But that I don't know if that means the 18E moves to the fall or the 18.
No.
I can't imagine.
I think
the 18 moves
I
to
think
the summer.
they put it at both of them in March.
In the
I think,
spring.
what the rumor is.
Spring. You think this is going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, they've been planning this for a while now to separate the iPhone into 2 launches.
Okay.
So the Pro, Samsung does it. There's
Pro
something to be
would
said
come
for
out in the fall, as well as the Ultra,
The Pro and the Ultra in the fall.
and then the regular, the 18 nothing, and the E would come out in the spring.
In the spring.
Okay.
I do
That makes
wonder.
sense.
I mean, that does make sense, and maybe it doesn't matter as much for the E versions because they're probably just going to continue to keep the hardware largely the same and then just swap the chip out. But it is interesting, I think, to kind of position it that way because like the E being behind the full 18 or 17 as it was, but this year I guess would be 18, 17 this year and the 16 before. I think there's been like enough time so you can kind of see the value differentiation, but I do wonder if that lessens the value prop a bit on the E series if you're going to launch that alongside, the main phone, which is $200 more, but usually a lot more, featured. I do wonder how that will work out.
Yeah, it's also. I think a lot of people are also wondering, like, do supply constraints and the rising cost of RAM and storage, are they going to affect like what their baseline models are going to be like? There was actually a analyst in a financial analyst based in Taipei, like had a tweet just last week, basically co-signing on something that was reported last week that the iPhone 18 is going to be based on TSMC's 2 nanometer fab, but also adding he also thinks it's going to be actually have 12 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah, I saw that, which is interesting.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if Leo was talking about the same stories that were making the rounds a week ago or the week before, but there were some rumors that said, well, actually, Apple is either going to hold the line with memory and storage or try to figure out how it can basically make the same phone at the same price without killing its, without having to absorb too much of its profit margin with supply shortages. Part of that story was basically about was that some of the approaches that they have won't affect the price or won't affect usability at all, because they're simply getting much, much more adept at manufacturing, particularly at fabricating these aluminum cases, and that basically they're saving a lot of money in the manufacturing and the assembly, and that might offset these kind of things. I have to say that it's a very, very positive rumor that the idea of RAM still creeping upward. It's a bad canard about how, oh gosh, Apple, the iPhone only has 8 gigabytes of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM. The Neo only has 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's not nearly enough for modern computing, particularly with AI. Not taking into account that Apple manages its system memory extremely well. Nonetheless, that's the sort of thing that that's the sort of reason why you might be able to still use a phone in 5, 6, or 7 years instead of around 3 or 4 years thinking, gosh, it really would be nice to be able to use these great new features of iOS 28, 29, 30 that aren't accessible to me.
MacBook Pro. I'm excited about the M6 MacBook Pro. I know it's going to be an ultra expensive year for me. Ultra is right. I want to get the folding phone, and I think this M6 MacBook Pro.
It may not be, because
it might be next year.
Mark Gurman says, I mean, he was already on the fence from the beginning and saying they want to ship it at the end of 26, but it may not make it. And it sounds like maybe the RAM shortages and all these other things have conspired to push it into early 27, which is fine. Like, they just did a MacBook Pro refresh. I think, so Leo, I don't know how you rejigger your taxes to make that capital hit in 27 instead of 26 when you buy your MacBook Pro Ultra Pro, whatever it's called. I don't know.
Give my piggy bank time to recover from the Ultra phone.
Yeah, exactly. We're all going to have the Ultra phone. Yes. And I mean, and I
are you going to do it? Is everybody going to do it?
I think so.
I think people are. Some people are very skeptical. They like.
People should wait for the reviews, but
they should. But
some of us, it's our job.
We won't.
Right. I mean, and
you'll be writing the reviews.
You'll be writing the review. I will probably look. It'll depend fundamentally on like the price. Like if it does come in at $3,000, I'm going to be honest, I don't know. Just because a Gen 1 product, I think that will be hard. If it's $2,500 and less. Again, I will be reading Jason's review for sure, but I can make that argument more. But in terms of if the Pro gets pushed into next year, the touchscreen, whatnot, like, I think that's okay. I don't know how many people are actually really clamoring for a major redesign of the MacBook Pro. Like,
it's pretty perfect.
It is. That's the thing. It's like it was redesigned to give us back what they took away from us when they did the Touch Bar unit. So part of me is like, I don't want you to. I mean, if you have a better screen, if you have touch screen stuff, if you have some other things, that's great.
I don't really want
but
the
don't take my
touch
ports
screen
away.
either. I do want the OLED screen though. That is
I want the OLED
big
screen.
Improvement. I really like OLED screens.
I think the biggest advantage of whatever the next generation hardware is going to be is that more power for the exact same price, even more storage and more RAM for the exact same price. Because, like we were saying earlier, Apple just keeps getting better at how to design these things for manufacture and how to basically optimize to make this as cheap to build as possible while still maintaining 100% of the quality you're expecting from an Apple device. So if it's not flashy at all and we don't figure out what's so innovative about it until iFixit does their teardown, I think I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, that one I can wait for the reviews.
I'm worried to see. The thing is, like, never.
I might not want to wait.
The classic maxim is always like whenever a company has a 100% new top to bottom design of something, don't be first in line to buy it.
Right.
Wait until the revision B comes out of the same hardware, because
they're
not going to figure out how to make this efficiently until they've run about 1 million or 2 or 3 million of these through the line.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, I want to be clear. Like, I'm almost certainly buying the foldable, but I'm also under no illusions that this is going to be like a great Gen 1 product.
Don't be like us.
Right. I wouldn't recommend other people do it either. And certainly, like, my mom, she did buy a MacBook Air, iPhone Air this year to replace her. I guess it was a 15
Was it your mom
Pro Max.
that didn't want to give up the Note that was exploding? The burning Note?
No, it wasn't a Note, but she did have an older phone, but she didn't have an Android.
It wasn't a Note. Somebody's mom would not give up the phone, even though it was, the one that was exploding.
Oh, what's life without a little bit of adventure?
I've bought every single fold, and I even bought the Flip, and I know use them.
Right.
You can see the crease on this. I will be very interested to see what Apple does about the crease. They say they don't have a crease on theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it'll probably, I think if anybody's going to be able to nail it, they will nail it as good as anyone. But I'm sure that the second generation will be like the iPad 2, which was leaps and bounds better than the original iPad, right? It'll be like the subsequent iPhone releases. Like they get better every single time. And so,
you think it'd be $2,500?
I think it's going to start at 2,000 is my guess.
I agree. I think that would be if Apple goes substantially higher than 2,000. Let's say
I don't think they can.
Exactly. If I would say 2,200 would be the absolute ceiling, and I think that they were struggling. They were basically making sure that no, let's hold the line at 2,000. But 2,200 would be the maximum they could do for a base Model 1. If they were to say to even come within breathing distance of $2,500, they would have to give you a list of compromises that is maybe a fortune cookie long.
Right.
They would have to say that the battery life is the best of any phone you will ever use. It uses the exact same camera array as the iPhone 18 Pro, or even better. They would have to basically say you don't have to give up a single darn thing. For me, I'm just as excited about the idea of a foldable. I'm more excited about a foldable iPhone than I am about any foldable Android phone, at least until Google finishes getting its act together about multiple apps. But the thing is, I'm not willing to have a subpar camera experience. That's
going to be the thing. Is what are the trade-offs going to be? Because I think that they can make the case. And I have this is obviously not based on anything, just my gut. I'm thinking $19.99 would be the base price, and then they're gonna cycle up $200 plus for storage.
Ultra Max.
There'll be a $2,700 one that has like 2 terabytes of storage.
Yeah, more storage.
More storage, right? But I feel like in the way that Apple will justify it, part of it will be assuming that they do this will be okay. It's like you're getting an iPad and a phone in one, right? If that's what it winds up doing,
then it might be.
And I think that you could make that, and I think you could make that argument. You could say, hey,
I love my Mini. I love my iPad Mini.
Right. So you're saying instead of spending $600, $500 on an iPad Mini, you're getting the Mini and you're getting the phone.
Right.
But to Andy's point, what are we going to be giving up on battery? What are we going to be giving up on camera? And that I don't know.
I don't think you'll give up anything on battery. I think you actually have more real estate for battery. But camera, because it needs to be thin,
right? I'm
pretty convinced, unless there's a massive camera bump, you're going to give up a lot on the camera.
Yeah, and durability is going to be another thing where I'm happy, but at least I'm content spending $1,100 or $1,200 for a phone, especially because I had that iPhone 6 Pro for 6 years. Okay, and the thing is, it got laid low by a manufacturing defect that existed on day one, and even with a manufacturing defect, it lasted 6 whole years. I really do expect at this point 5 years of use out of a phone, and it's still unknown how well a foldable phone is going to handle all of the little accidents that accrue year to year to year. It's not the first drop that takes out a phone. It's the 6th, 7th, and 8th drop when those little micro fractures in an adhesive or in a display start to add up. And I would be as bummed as I was when even my 6-year-old phone died. I would be super bummed if in 3 years' time I broke my $2,000 phone that's going to cost at least $1,100 to repair. So, I mean, repair is going to be another thing that they're going to have to address too. This, unfortunately for Apple, this is no longer 2017, where they can just basically say whatever costs to repair, tough darts, it's going to cost that much to repair. They are now going to have to deal with a lot of new issues, including some new regulations at the EU. The EU has a new battery replacement regulation that's coming into effect next year. It doesn't, meaning that it has to be easy to repair. It doesn't have to be like pop out like a Lego, right? It basically has to be. You shouldn't have to disassemble the entire phone. It should not be prohibitively expensive to replace a battery in a phone. That's basically what the regulation says. The current generations of iPhones probably are not going to be affected because it also says, but if you design the battery and the power system such that for the legitimate life of the phone, the battery will not lose more than 20% of capacity, you're exempt. Will that also apply to a foldable? I don't know. Can they assemble this in such a way that it can be easily disassembled? Or are they going to be able to figure out how to make these super flat batteries in a way that will be exempt from this thing? There are so many questions that are not going to be answered until, again, iFixit does that teardown.
Enough of this September. What of next September, the 20th anniversary iPhone? According to Another Weibo leaker, digital chat station. Apple has tapped Samsung to produce curved displays for the 20th anniversary iPhone, a 4 micro curve OLED panel. I don't know what that means. 4 micro curves.
I assume they mean something similar to what I've got like on my Pixel phone. It's just a gentle curve.
It's like
that wraps
bubbles,
around the corner.
Samsung does this on some of their devices too, I think.
Yeah, and the effect, or at least according to some of the rumors I've seen, is that not so much to basically make it look like the top of an Apple Watch, but more to basically make the bezels disappear completely, which is cool, and Apple could do extremely well. As usual, I'm just concerned that if it makes it 1%, if it makes a phone at least a tiny percent less durable and resistance to a drop, it's probably not worth it. But I figure that Apple knows this, and they spend enough time having to fix broken phones to not want phones to break if they can possibly make that not happen.
Yeah, but then they also love to sell their Apple Care, right? Like, I mean, that's a thing too, is that this all kind of comes as a service thing. I will say, like, regardless, like if I wind up getting the foldable, anybody who does get the Apple Care, to your point about it. Like that's one of those, like, there's never been a product in existence more that you have to buy the Apple Care than with the foldable phone.
I would say that with anyone. The aspect ratio of the front too. I like the little pocket square.
I do too. If that's what it's actually going to look like, I actually quite like that a lot. It's like, because to me, it's like, oh, this is kind of like my Game Boy, like Mini, and and that would be like kind of the perfect kind of thing. Like
apps have to be adapted. They will, won't they?
Yeah, that's to me. I wonder now that if the bigger question about the iPhone Ultra or whatever it is how's it going to be to use it as a phone in folded up mode, because that's a weird shape and size for an iPhone these days. And when I used an iPhone mini, there were apps where very clearly the developer was not aware that the iPhone mini existed, right? And so that's what I wonder is like, well, let's look at WWDC, how much emphasis Apple puts on making sure that your apps follow all these size class restrictions so that they can get bigger and they can get much smaller. Just no reason. Just what if they did get much smaller?
And also that it could change that way moment for moment, where it starts life as a widget on the lock screen, turns into a full screen thing on a static display, and then 2 seconds later is supposed to be an iPad mini. What does that transition look like? Should it be really, really subtle, or should it be really, really explicit? This is part of the human interface that Apple does so well that makes me keen to see what Apple's thought of for this.
Yep. Should be fun. Something to spend our money on. Cases will be challenging. Cases are really challenging for folding phones.
Yeah, cases are going to be, I mean, and that's such a huge like accessory market driver. But yeah, I don't even, that's
skins,
I usually have, in fact, I have on my iPhone, or I had on my iPhone a wallet, but I went back to a regular case and bought a wallet. So I would be ready. I got a little wallet so I can carry my stuff in the wallet. I'm just so there won't be a wallet case for this thing. I don't think.
I'm just so terrified of using a phone without a case on it.
I know.
Like, and again, Apple builds them really, really solidly. They're wonderful, but I am so terrified of using any phone without some sort of a case on it to basically get. I feel as though that will give me the final like 9 to 11 months out of this phone.
There are a lot of people though that don't use cases.
That's true.
I'm usually a case-free person, but like this year, weirdly, like because I think they made the size of the phone bigger and thicker, and then like they changed like from like the ceramic to the aluminum or whatever. I went back to a case because I was like, I'm gonna drop this thing, and now it's gonna scratch, and my beautiful orange color will be dinged up. But I don't know. I usually kind of go back and forth. I don't even know how you will do a case on a foldable though.
Yeah. Well, the ones I've had aren't even really cases. They're like a little layer that goes on one side, a little layer that goes on the other side that doesn't protect anything.
Skins,
yeah, they're more like skins.
And you can't put a screen protector on it either because it folds, and like there's going to be, and then the things are softer. Yeah, look, I'm excited about this new device, but I'm also very like opening myself up, being like, this is not going to be durable. This is not going to be the best design. Yeah. This is going to be one that you are hopefully going to trade in a year and then get the better version, or 2 years, or however long they do it.
I'm hopeful because they've learned from Samsung. It's not like the first
Samsung learned from Samsung, and they're making the display.
Samsung's learned a lot.
Samsung,
and as I
LG,
learned,
like
you
a lot
don't
of
put a
companies.
screen protector on there. It already has one because I removed.
Well, a lot of people did when this first came out. Everybody, because they weren't
I thought, there's a
about
screen for there's a I don't yeah no that
the
was a
Motorola's
mistake.
ones had that issue too, where people
Yeah.
when they first got those foldable phones, like were like, don't remove
it off.
this layer.
It's interesting you mentioned Motorola there. So they're having their big media event tomorrow, and Motorola is unexpectedly turned into the king of foldables.
Yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about competition with Samsung. I'm concerned about competition with Motorola because they are really, really good at putting an immense amount of value into affordable for whatever class of phone they're making. It is just mind-boggling when you look at the specs of what they can do for $500. It is baffling to see what they can do for $150. Like, they're not great phones, but they are not subpar devices for what you're doing. So I'm keen to see what they're going to do for their next generation of foldables, if that's one of the things they're announcing tomorrow.
Interestingly, their invite says intelligence meets art.
Oh, I hope it's AI. I hope it's AI. I hope they're putting AI into a phone.
Oh, come on, stop it.
/miss.
The Edge 50 Neo, the Moto G35 5G, and the Moto G55 5G. I used to be a big Moto fan, I have to say. But, it's Google sold them and,
Again,
we'll
Lenovo is just a different company.
Yes,
but to Andy's point, like they do make very good value devices.
They're good phones. Actually,
Yeah.
my daughter, I usually get my daughter a Motorola because they're less expensive and they're good. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see tomorrow. We'll report back to you. Let's take a break. Then we will talk about Google had its event or an event last week, Cloud Next, and they did mention Siri. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Also, there's a big day coming up Thursday. Jason Snell's getting the ink ready. More to come.
Right. Charts.
Charts.
Money.
But first, a word from our sponsor. This show brought to you by, and I mean literally, brought to you by CacheFly. CacheFly is our content delivery network. They've kept our content moving, well, practically since the beginning, almost 20 years now. Every stream, every download, every on-demand episode, CacheFly, quietly do the heavy lifting behind the scenes. And you know what? Not once have they dropped the ball. If there's a problem, it's on our side. CacheFly has been so reliable. Around for more than 20 years, CacheFly is anything but static. They really try to be on the cutting edge, and they have got some amazing things. For instance, here are a few things to know if you're evaluating CDN options for your infrastructure. And we knew about this. That's one of the reasons we went with CacheFly. Game downloads up to 158% faster than competing providers. Sub-second video start times on any device at scale with less than a second latency. Rock-solid software delivery even on chaotic launch days. Yours, not theirs. But they're ready for you. And live streaming to millions of concurrent users without breaking a sweat. CacheFly recently added useful features like advanced analytics for deep CDN visibility in the portal or your observability stack, edge control for programmatic request and response handling at the edge. I'm sure Patrick, our engineer, Patrick Delahanty, is all on top of all these things. Terraform integration to manage CDN resources as code. With more than 75 points of presence, I know about this, across 6 continents. 75 across 6 continents. They are everywhere your customers are. We have listeners all over the world, and we love it that they get their content from us through CacheFly faster because they're getting it from a local server. CacheFly has over 5,000 users like us. A 100% uptime in SLA. Not 4 nines, 5 nines, 100%. How many nines is that? All the nines. And 24/7 engineer-to-engineer support. And this was actually probably the number one thing for us because we were just starting out. We enjoyed, and you will enjoy, flexible billing, no strong arm contracts, very flexible. They'll work with you to make it work. CacheFly is the CDN built for our business, built for your business. Learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. That's CacheFly.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. So Google was talking a little bit about their partnership with Apple at Google Next. They confirm a content-aware Siri built with Gemini at its heart, their LLM model, will debut this year. Google's cloud CEO Thomas Kurian talked about Apple as a key customer of the company. And you could kind of tell because there was an Apple logo on the screen behind him.
Yeah, he literally didn't say anything that wasn't in the press release.
Right.
Like literally, it's like he read the press release.
It was like one line
loaded into the teleprompter. He read the same phrase that they used in characterizing the relationship, and then they moved on. But they put the logo up. They were obviously very proud about this deal. They wanted to mention it in the Google Cloud conference. Like it matters. Even though it's very funny where Apple is like, not a word.
Nothing.
Not a word
Apple
that we didn't approve.
And
they're like, all right,
yeah.
okay. But they cared enough to say
they
so.
let Google do it. And obviously Google's not doing without their permission. So
exactly. And it is part of I was surprised. Like it was a 2-hour long presentation. And oh my God, the money that was on that stage, because they're basically selling Google AI and Google Cloud services to people who are writing billion-dollar checks.
Yes.
And so the difference between this event and, hey, well, let's have Jimmy Fallon do a fake talk show to roll out the new phone. It's like, no, it was so much money there.
Even the podium looked expensive. It was fancy.
It was amazing. Oh, and the Apple logo. It was the dramatic picture of him like in front of just the stark Apple logo, which looked amazing. But it seemed as though like every 10 minutes they'd have another like wallpaper of, and here are all the different Fortune 500 companies that are using our services, and here's all the here's testimonials from these wallpaper companies that have been using our new agentic AI services. It was such a battleship. It was such a May Day parade of firepower to basically make the case that like every single one of you jerks a few years ago who said, ooh, you didn't do a chatbot, you're so far behind, it's so embarrassing. Well, I've got a hat here and you're going to eat every damn stitch of it.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. It really is interesting, the distinction between this and WWDC, which is aimed at the geeks, and this is aimed at the money guys.
This is an enterprise conference, right? This is I/O will be the actual developer thing, and that will be, I'm sure, just like last year, very AI focused. But yeah, this is the enterprise show, and it's all about the cloud, and it's all about showing, our cloud also includes our AI cloud, and look at all these people, including our biggest competitor, also has to use us at the end of the day, because the implicit message being they couldn't do it themselves. They had to partner with us, which is fair.
One thing that was a little bit interesting, and again, this was a demo, and of course, this is designed to impress and to get people to write $1 billion check. But it was interesting where they're trying to give practical examples of here's what an agentic workflow will be like at a marketing company for a big like international furniture like showroom store, using not just having developers at that company write workflows for them, but having just a marketing person be able to essentially construct agentic workflow, and here's how quickly they can turn things around. Again, this is a constructed demo to sell a very, very expensive service, but it is a peek into what one vision of an agentic future is. It's not just simply, hey, schedule this appointment and make sure you loop in Jim, Steve, and Dorothy. It's here's 11 people we can fire right now, because now just like in the for 50 years of business until the 1980s, executives used to type their own letters. Now we don't need to pay dozens of people to type things, because now the executives will type things themselves. And now they're building a future which now you don't have to hire analysts, you don't have to have the staff of people to do these research reports, because now the executives who are supposed to be doing that will now do that themselves. That's another thing that they'll be able to have to do for themselves. It's interesting, powerful, and very, very scary.
Day after tomorrow, Q2 2026 financial results from Apple. You'll be prepared with I think you have like a sleeve garters, a little visor.
The green eye shade of like an accountant. I've got my adding machine over here that does the paper tape coming out of it.
I like to imagine like a mission control thing where like all kinds of people in like ties and short sleeve white shirts smoking and just looking at displays.
Yeah. That's it's an AI simulation of that. But yes, that's what it is inside my Numbers app.
Christina, do you get PTSD when you think about the quarterly results time?
Oh no, I mean not really. I mean, like I'm just glad I don't have to cover them anymore. I'm glad that Jason is
he does
doing that.
The perfect job.
He does the most amazing job.
More.
No, I used to always go on TV usually to talk about the earnings, and the only stressful thing with that was that oftentimes the earnings would not be out, and I would already be like mic'd up on set, and so they would be reading them into my ear right before they would cut to me. So I'd have to do all the math in my head about like, okay, what was the analyst prediction? What is this? What's the EPS? What's this? Do all the math, and then they'd come to you, and you have like 45 seconds max to basically get your analysis across, and they cut off. So I'm glad to have avoided that. I am curious. Jason, since you're like the expert here, do we think that John Ternus will make an appearance on tomorrow's call?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thursday's call, rather.
It would not surprise me if he did. It would
They'll
also
have to talk about it.
They will undoubtedly talk about it. But it would be something like, hey, let's introduce John Ternus, and he's going to say something about it. Maybe the other alternative is right, that they'll wait and let him introduce himself, in when he takes over, and they won't have him on. They could do it either way. I think one of the questions I've got going forward is how, and this maybe matters only to those of us who have to cover this closely, but like Steve Jobs didn't come to every call. Tim Cook is there for every financial analyst call because it's Tim Cook. He's that kind of guy. But Steve Jobs would just kind of like pop in from time to time, and then he'd leave, and Tim would have to do the call, or the CFO would have to do the call. Yeah. So I do wonder if Ternus is going to be there every time. I think he'll probably be there at the beginning. They may put Kevin Parrick, who's the CFO, they may have him do more and more. I mean, even now, what Tim Cook really does is read a statement. Yes, then Parrick reads he reads a longer statement, the CFO does, and then they answer some questions, and then they're done. So it's not nearly as much of a back and forth. It's a lot more pre-cooked than it used to be. So he might come, but if not, he'll be there probably, the next one, and certainly the one after that. So
You're still doing the puns you did on Upgrade with his name. You had the cookbook, and now you're talking pre-cooked, and
yeah, I mean you gotta cook the books. If it's the financial results, they cook the books. They've been cooking the books for 15 years, folks. And
too
so
many
now
cooks in the kitchen.
and by the way, I also wanted to say, based on their estimate, which is that they think 3 months ago, they said they estimated company revenue to grow between 13 and 16%. I believe this will be the first corporate second quarter Apple has ever done over $100 billion. They did, the fourth quarter was over $100 billion.
That's what the analysts are expecting.
And so I think because they did 95.4 last time.
Yeah,
and so
Yahoo's saying a low of 107 and a high of 115.
Yeah, billion. I think 110, 112, 115 is probably what we're talking about here. And I mentioned this. I mean, 100 is meaningful in some ways because we got 10 fingers, 10 toes, whatever. But the idea that a routine non-holiday quarter for Apple generates more than $100 billion of revenue would have seemed madness. Like 3 years ago, it would have seemed like madness. 4 years ago, like in 2021 fiscal, those quarters were like 89, 81, and 83. And that is the numbers are so big and you lose track of it. But the ratcheting up of Apple's quarterly revenue, it just keeps happening. And there was a big jump last fiscal to 95, 94, and 102. And it feels like this year it's going to start at 110. So they are a machine that generates cash. That is the truth of modern Apple, is that they throw off enormous amounts of cash.
Yeah, I wonder. That's another brick that's in John Ternus's backpack in terms of pressure. That's like, it's almost an unfair amount of growth to basically to say, oh, by the way, and now here's the ball. You're expected to set the same amount of records that Tim has. That
said, he does have an enormous amount of cash at his disposal, which means that Apple doesn't spend a lot on capital and R&D. They spend a lot. compared to like what I spend on it. But
it's a lot more than you and I.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I'm in my garage here for Pete's sake. But relatively to some of the tech companies that are out there,
they're not even close.
Right? So if they want to buy something, if they want to build something, if they want to create a whole crash program, they want to throw away $10 billion on a car that they never ship, for example, just saying, they can do that. They have the power, and that gives Ternus a lot of flexibility. But Andy's absolutely right. It also is pressure, because it doesn't matter how big that number is. The next year, Wall Street will say, why is it not even bigger?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, that the thing that you'll see, just to see how much things change or don't change, is do they continue to take the same tactic towards acquisitions and other types of things, right? Because
what do you think the product winner will be this quarter? Will it be the Neo?
I think they're going to call out the Neo, and I think that is one of the on the top of my list of things, because you got the tea leaf reading when they come out with their statements, and obviously they don't break out Mac sales by unit, so they will need to add what they say, add some color there, and I think they will. And what will that be? Like, how will they characterize MacBook Neo sales? Because I bet you they're going to have some real good words that they picked out of the dictionary to use to characterize that for Wall Street and everybody else who's listening to them there. So I think that'll be a question. I think ongoing iPhone sales continue to be a question as well. And then everybody's going to want to know what the forecast for next is and what they say about like RAM, right? Because they've been pretty over it up to now, and then but there may be a time where they're like, okay, this is going to actually impact this. But I think MacBook Neo, we can all like speculate on it, but since they don't break it out per product, the only way you'll get a sense straight from the horse's mouth about how it's doing is if they decide to characterize it, which, given that it's probably really good news, they probably will.
Yeah, I figure that it's if I can bet on one thing, it's going to be that they will at least say, here's how many percentage of Neo buyers are first-time Mac buyers, or even better, new to the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, or they'll say 60% of new Mac sales were to brand new users, and that's a number driven by MacBook Neo, something like that. But they will not rest if they've got a stat like that, Andy. You are 100% right.
Yeah,
and that's what I think they'll do is they'll really highlight how many new users they're bringing into the ecosystem, because that I think is going to be, I mean, that's the most exciting part of this release, right? And even if they did break out the number, which they don't do, I have a feeling the revenue number, just because the ASP is so low, wouldn't be as impressive. So it's going to be much better for them to manipulate the fee to say
average
selling price.
Yeah, Neos aren't going to throw off a lot of revenue or profit, because they are even if they're a middling margin profit or product, and they're very cheap. So they may not move the Mac revenue number that much, but they'll move the new to Mac number. And probably, the ideal, Christina, is that stat that is like, 80% of MacBook Neo buyers had never used a Mac before.
Exactly.
If they have a number
if they have a thing like that, and then that fills your whole growth strategy story, and really makes analysts happy about that, because hey, these are new Mac customers, so they might even be, and if they can even say new to the Apple ecosystem, that's even better, right? Because then there's like, okay, if you buy a Neo, then maybe you'll buy a phone, and you'll buy services and all that.
CIRP has been doing, I don't know if this is the theme of April, but it seems like every week they do a new report on essentially the behavior of Apple owners and Apple buyers, about the meaning, how meaningful it is that, look, only 45% of I think last week's, or was it this report, basically saying that only 40-something% of people have like smartwatches, but of those people, like 85% of those people, 88% of iPhone users have bought Apple Watches as opposed to anything that competes with it. And in previous weeks, they've done breakouts like that about how many, I think something in the mid 40s of people own both a MacBook and an iPad and an iPhone. Basically the halo effect of, if you buy one Apple item, you are probably going to be buying a lot more Apple hardware in the future. So that's another thing that analysts are going to just sip up like a cat to cream. The idea of, if we're building, the people who are new to the Apple ecosystem are people that are next going to buy an iPhone, next going to buy an Apple Watch, next going to buy an iPad. It's just nothing. It's hard to know the end of the good news regarding the MacBook Neo. It's just nothing but good news.
The old stock market adage is buy on the rumors, sell on the news. So both Apple and Microsoft's earnings are tomorrow. Apple's are on Thursday, going up in a very bleak market in general. Even Google and Meta suffering.
Google's call is tomorrow too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah, Google's this tomorrow.
Well,
and so
nobody's buying on the rumor for Google.
100. Christine, what was it, like 120? I want to say $127 billion. They said they might be outlaying in capital expenditures this year alone.
I think they said 180, wasn't it? It was huge.
Might be 150. I mean, and then they just also made get another agreement, for something. Yeah, I mean, it's
at least they're
crazy.
making money. I mean,
but that's the thing. They're making money and. Every
they're
analyst
making money on advertising, not
well,
on
but the thing too is that every analyst looks at the companies differently, right? So a company like Apple, you expect to kind of have like a hoard of cash because that's how they've always operated. Whereas Google, as long as they bring the revenues in, like their capital expenditures are usually judged differently.
But Google Cloud is actually very profitable. We used to joke. On the Material podcast I do with Florence Ion, of course, we talk about the quarterlies, and the running joke used to be, and Google Cloud posted a wonderful record quarter. They only lost $650 million this quarter. That's champagne pop. And now I'm saying, no, here's how much it is now. Basically, it's now all that investment is now paying off, and it's just
still dwarfed by AWS and Azure, but still.
Yeah, but they've done a really good job coming around. Yeah, Azure and AWS are still way higher. Meta's earnings are tomorrow too. So tomorrow's the trifecta of Google, Meta, and Microsoft.
Very busy.
We've stepped up our abuse of society in many ways that have profited us much.
That
of
19
course,
billion
evil is its own reward, but we're also doing stock buybacks, so there's also that.
And we're going to fire 8,000 people. That's a tragedy. Jeez. Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We've got a few more stories before we wrap things up. And of course, our picks of the week coming up too. But I do want to mention our club. If you believe in independent quality journalism, this is the best way to support it. Support what we do here at TWiT. TWiT.tv/club. TWiT gets you $10 a month, gets you ad-free versions of all the shows, special programming we don't do anywhere else. And the nice feeling that you're supporting something that is, I think, making a difference. And I hope bringing some quality and entertainment to your life. You get access to the Club TWiT Discord. That's always a lot of fun. Great people to hang out with. And we just love to hang out with you. So twit.tv/club TWiT. Join the club, the cool kids who support TWiT. Apple did fix that bug that allowed the FBI to extract signal messages from iPhones. Turned out if you had left notifications on for Signal, those notifications got stored in plain text. Even if you deleted Signal, they would persist. That's what the FBI used to get the deleted chat messages from iPhones. Apple chief update in 26.4.2, which came out a couple of days ago, was to fix that flaw. So Apple did not like that. Nor did Signal, for that matter.
No, Signal was very upset, understandably.
But, and of course, our advice at the time was, well, just why do you have notifications in plain text turned on for Signal anyway? But I guess people do. There is a new form of Mac malware that is going. This will be the new thing to go after, going after developers' tokens and keys. This was discovered April 22nd. It's called the Phoenix Worm and Shade Stager, 2 unknown malware, 0 days, undetected by antivirus engines as recently as a few days ago. And the whole idea is to get on your system and look for tokens. And if they can find tokens, they can spend them. SSH keys, cloud credentials from Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. Kubernetes configuration files, and authentication data tied to Git and Docker. Also, browser profiles. Well, they're just getting everything. Everything. User privileges, hardware, data, network configuration, environment variables. That's where those tokens live. Anyway, I don't know what you should do. Be careful, I guess. And Apple will undoubtedly fix whatever it is that they're using to get in. Apple does a pretty good job with Gatekeeper and so forth, but still, it's important to remember malware still can affect you. NASA has published more videos from the iPhone, including Earthshine from the Orion. really amazing iPhone video. I'm glad they brought the iPhones.
Yeah.
Have you figured out? Like, I was trying to figure out, like, when all the pictures that come out of those Nikons belong to the public because they're public cameras on a public mission. Who owns the copyright to the iPhone pictures? Are they also public domain? Like, can Apple
I think they are.
just use them? Okay.
I think they're probably NASA owned.
Anything NASA produces is space part. And by the way, it's good. You could see in the window the reflection of the iPhone, so that's how we know it was done in an iPhone.
That's one of the benefits of the orange. It's like,
yeah, it stands out. It stands out. That's Christina Koch's capture of the Earth 54,000 kilometers away. Wow, shining through that's beautiful, shining through the window.
I mean, we always talk about the Apollo missions and the Earthrise and the idea that you see that perspective of everything that's ever happened in human history is just on that little dot in the midst of all that blackness out there.
Carl Sagan's
but I think,
words,
I mean, one of the things about them bringing the iPhones on, even though obviously their, Nikon camera is going to do a better job, is we live in a world where so much of our context is the videos and photos we take on our phones. And so to have just a phone shot of whether it's a selfie or just right out the window. I mean, whenever I fly transatlantic, if we go over Greenland, I take a bunch of pictures out the window of Greenland because it's Greenland. That's cool, right? And so something about being on a spaceship looking at the Earth from your phone camera, I think in a 21st century context, I think it hits different, which I think is great.
It's more accessible than a Hasselblad.
Well, not only that, but the thinking that goes into it, like even with like a pocket camera like this, it's like there's something very, very deliberate about, okay, here's the lens, here's the focus, here's the settings, here's this, here's that. Whereas it's very, very thoughtful and methodical. Whereas when you take a picture with the camera, it's like, oh my God, that looks great. Click, 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 click.
Right.
Those are the shots that are not being covered by those Hasselblads and by those Nikons. That's just such a cool view out of the window. I got to take a picture of that right now. Or, oh my God, Steve, hold up that bag because I definitely want to remember this. There's a whole bunch of the story hasn't been told, and it really is super exciting.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I was taking a walk with my daughter in the Japanese tea garden in San Francisco yesterday, and it was so beautiful. I thought, oh, shoot, I forgot my good camera. And then I remembered, well, actually, I might have my good camera with me. I have my iPhone. And it did a great job. I mean, it really is it's an amazing camera, and you get such great shots with it. So, yeah. But it is more, you're right, it's more personal. It's less fussy. To see those shots from the astronauts, and you could see the phone in the reflection and stuff. It's
familiar to our context of life on Earth, right? So I feel it adds something to have it just be, those are people, they got a phone like my phone, they're pointed out the window, and it's not Greenland down there, it's like all of planet Earth.
Yeah. Finally, a couple of Peabody Awards for Apple TV, Pluribus and Come See Me in the Good Light, both winning Peabody Awards. In the 86th Peabody Awards, 2 wins. Pluribus in the entertainment category, Come See Me in the Good Light in the documentary category. So good on Apple.
And the Ted Lasso teaser was released today.
Yeah. Ted Lasso's come out in August.
Yeah, August 5th, I think.
Teaser, yeah.
Did you watch it? Are we excited?
I did.
Appropriately scored with a Marcus Mumford song.
I was going to say.
You got to get that in there. It's Rubber Band Man in there, yeah.
Why is that appropriate? Tell me.
Because he does the theme song.
Of
Ted Lasso. So it was another Marcus Mumford. So the vibe of it and the singing of it is exactly the same as the Ted Lasso theme song. So yeah.
I always loved Mumford and Sons. So
yeah.
I guess maybe I'll watch that show.
August 5th.
It's pretty good. This is the fourth and final?
Fourth season. Well, we don't know because they ended it after season 3 or so, we thought. Like the kind of the arc was concluded. And then I guess Apple and Warner Brothers and whoever else kind of came back together and they were, we want to do more. Not everyone will be back, but most of the main leads will. And now Jason Sudeikis, I guess, will be Ted Lasso will be coaching a women's team.
And I think I saw Tracy Ullman in the teaser.
Yeah, she is in the teaser.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of interesting new actors. The way that they framed it is that they had a 3-season story. They told it. Obviously, it was a global phenomenon. Apple got the money, backed it up to Warner Brothers, and then a smaller truck of money backed up to Jason Sudeikis' house. There's like a whole chain of money trucks out there. But this is like I think they haven't said, but I assume that they've got another little story they want to tell, and they figure that they've got 2 or 3 seasons to tell it. That's my guess, is that this is like, what's the next chapter? They wanted to tell the story of Ted running away from his divorce and being sad and finding a place in the world and kind of coming to cope with the changes in his life, and then stop running and go back to Kansas City, right? That was the story they wanted to tell in that 3-season arc. And presumably they now have a new thing, which is I don't know what it's going to be, but it's about Ted, in a different place in his life and what that means going forward.
As long as Hannah Waddingham is in it,
she's in it.
She's in it.
She's absolutely in it.
She's fantastic.
The bulk of things there. And so Bill Lawrence, who created Ted Lasso, he also is the creator of Shrinking, which has done kind of a similar thing where it had a 3-season arc. They told the story. They have said they're coming back, but have made it clear it's not going to be like a continuation of like where we were before. It will be setting up like another kind of era of story. So it's not like, this will be, 5 weeks later. It'll be, kind of at a different moment, which I like. I like that type of storytelling. And so I was initially kind of hesitant. I was like, I'm not really sure if we need another Ted Lasso season because they ended it the way they ended it. But if they are going to kind of tell a whole new kind of net story, then I like the characters. I'm happy.
The fact that he's coming back to Richmond, but it's not to coach the men's team, it's to coach the women's team. Right. I like that, right? Because it's not the same story. It would have been disappointing if it was like, never mind, I'm back doing the same thing that I did before.
It would have felt hollow, like the whole buildup that we'd had for the previous 3 seasons were for nothing. But for him to come back in a different capacity, tell a different thing, but still have those same characters that we liked a lot, which is kind of what the teaser indicated, right? Which was kind of him familiarizing himself with some of the townsfolk who are now mad at him for different reasons. And that was cute and it was a nice thing. So it's a great show. I was glad to see that teaser this morning.
And to have it be supportive of women's soccer, which is really kind of having a moment, and was a very U.S. thing for a long time, and now European women's soccer is becoming a thing. Last fall, I went to a Chelsea Arsenal women's match, and it was awesome. And it was such a great environment with families there, like just moms and dads and kids all having a great time. It's a real kind of cultural moment. And so for Ted Lasso to put the stake in the ground and say, we're going to tell a story about women's football, I'm also really excited that they chose that.
Pick of the week coming up. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. I like to kick things off. I will kick something off because I like Patrick Wardle. I think Objective-C does amazing tools, a whole bunch of them. They're free. They're open source to secure your Mac. And I just thought I'd mention one that anybody who's interested in privacy might want to know about, called Oversight, which will let you know if your Mac's mic or webcam has been turned on and will allow you to block it if you don't want it to be turned on, just in case something else is running. Objective-C stuff is nice. It's free. It runs in the background. They have, Lulu's, they're probably one of their best known, but they have so many little tools. You should probably go there and look at them all and see. He just made a version of his firewall for the Linux, which was very kind of cool. I don't like it. I don't use it, but I think, was it Knock Knock? I think it was Knock Knock. Anyway, I will just mention Oversight at Objective-C, and their website is objective-see.org. Christina Warren, your pick of the week.
Yeah, so there were a couple of blog posts in the past week. I think Nick here was the ones who I saw primarily, and kind of started a discussion about how iCloud photos, like, iPhoto libraries are not necessarily reliable, and kind of getting off of that train can be really difficult and really expensive, especially if you fill up your, Apple, your iCloud account amount. Like if you hit that 2 terabytes, the price they want you to pay beyond that can be really excessive. And there's also difficulty in like, okay, how good of a download am I really getting, and how much of the data is really protected? There are lots of issues with that. What that made me think about was, I'm really glad that I have an app called Power Photos, which is by Fat Cat Software. So it's fatcatsoftware.com, or just Google Power Photos. And it's $39.99. So it's, not inexpensive, but it's a really, really good app if you deal with a lot of large iCloud, iPhoto libraries, where basically you can manage multiple libraries. It can help you find duplicate items. It helps you merge libraries, handle a lot of the metadata information, extracting and exporting photos from various things. It's really, really good. So if you have a big photo collection, or if you're somebody who's maybe hesitant, having reading those things, like maybe I want to have a dual backup strategy or not have all of my things in one basket. This was an app. I thought about it because I was like, oh, I have this app and I've used this and this has been really useful for me. So this is just one that I figured I would recommend.
How many? I have 62,000 photos in my photos library. How many photos do you have? What are you laughing at? I bet you have more than that, Andy.
I just offloaded. I just did an extraction of all my data from Flickr, and that was in itself was like 10 to 11,000, and I haven't put anything on it in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. So yeah, everything
goes in because even on my fancy cameras, because I don't want to use Lightroom, everything goes into Apple's Photos. So it's 10 years. Well, when did I start using? That's 15 years.
Google Photos is my central truth for photos.
It's 20
and it's
years.
Like, yeah, it's
20 years of photos. I have it in Google Photos and Amazon Photos, and I even have it on my NAS. And
I was going to say I have like multiple
photos.
I try to have multiple things, but it can be difficult. Again, like with the Apple's Photos app, which is my source of truth too. Like it can be difficult to like deal with multiple libraries and getting all that stuff off. And so it's a good app.
As long as I'm in the Apple ecosystem, I'm just going to use Photos. When I take good pictures in my Leica, they still goes into Photos. I can edit it with anything else later. Because Lightroom, I just don't want to pay for Lightroom anymore. I'm just done with that. I will take a look at Power Photos. It looks very cool. The ultimate toolbox for photos on the Mac. Andy and Akko pick of the week.
I have 2 related picks. The first May of every year is Free Comic Book Day. That's a special sort of like celebratory day in the comic book retail industry where they basically, it started off like when the first Fox Spider-Man movie came out as a way of, hey, maybe we can like use all the attention that the movie is getting to like get people to come to comic book stores and maybe become comic book readers. And so basically it's an open house sort of thing. I know that their stores are open all the time anyway, but the stores that participate will have like free comics for basically anybody who wants to come by. A lot of these are like actually specially printed comics that that DC Comics and other publishers produce just specifically for Free Comic Book Day. But they usually also have like sales. They have events. They might have one of my local stores had pancakes. They just basically for some reason they just set up an electric skillet and was making pancakes for everybody on top of everything else. I don't know if like maple syrup on fingers is good for a browsing sort of experience for retail, but it's a fun day depending on like how into it your local comic book shop is. If you go to freecomicbookday.com, you can basically look up and find a local comic book store in your neighborhood that is actually hosting it. That was basically the whole point of this, is to basically make people aware that, hey, look, there's like actually a comic book store within 8 miles of your place. And speaking of comic book stores, I need to recommend my platonic ideal of a comic book store is a store called the Million Year Picnic in Waltham, Massachusetts. It is every single thing you want in a comic book store and none of the things you do not want. It's a store that's packed full of like new comics, trade paperbacks, used comics, statues, toys, games, all kinds of things. And yet it's not cluttered. The aisles are wide and open. Everything is really, really wonderfully well lit. The proprietor, Steve Higgins, is an amazing retailer. He's been in this business since the 80s. There is a certain time limit on this visit because after 40 years, he is retiring and closing the store on July 31st. And I really, really encourage you to. This used to be my regular comic book store, and it kind of killed me when I moved like a prohibitive distance away. Even then, I was still coming in once a month because it was such a good shop.
You took me there. You took me there when you came up to see me in Boston. We went out to Waltham.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's amazing, and also
great store.
Isn't Waltham where the big prison is also? I think on Ray Donovan, I was talking about it. Yeah, he's up at Waltham.
I
would the comic book store.
That's not how I would describe Brandeis University. But if you had a bad experience in college, but what is there is on Moody Street. It's worth a trip because it's also on this street that is packed full of like restaurants. There's a Dosa Hut right across the street. Like there's an Italian bakery.
Dosa Hut. Whoa.
That was actually the running joke for years because someone rented it and like put all these like steel like trays on the front of it, and it was vacant, but with the signage up for like a decade, leading to people rumoring that it must be a front for something because they've been a week away from. But they actually did open it. So there's ice cream. There's a thrift store. It's a great place to just hang for a day for a Saturday afternoon.
It's probably because of the Brandeis community supporting it, right?
Certainly partly because
students are always it's always great.
I've been going there since like the 1990s, and it's one of the rare places where, you know, like Newbury Street certainly changed since I started going there in Boston. The Davis Square in Somerville 100% changed in the years since I started going there. But Moody Street in Waltham is still the same, really fun, accessible, charming.
So what's the Million Year Picnic? Because it says this is called The Outer Limits, this comic book store.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's The Outer Limits. I'm so sorry. The Million Year Picnic is another very, very famous, very, very good store.
Okay, you can see my confusion.
I had the correct URL. I'm so sorry.
You did. I went to the URL, and it's The Outer Limits comic book store in Waltham, Mass.
It's the only comic book store on Moody Street in Waltham.
437 Moody Street. It's the only one. Yeah.
Basically,
I'm going to be in Kona on Saturday, and there's no comic book stores in Kona, unfortunately. So
yeah,
I just have to drink more coffee, I guess. And
find something else to do in Hawaii.
Find something else to do. I don't know. Is there anything else to do? The Outer Limits.
The Outer Limits. Basically,
I love their website. It's got an Outer Limits TV, and it's got some fun.
It hasn't updated since like the early teens. It's a nostalgic look.
It is.
Steve updates regularly on Facebook. That's where he like posts most of his stuff. And also, the Outer Limits is legendary enough that he doesn't necessarily need to like.
He does not
advertise.
need to promote it.
Really, I was surprised when I did a Google to make sure I had the right URL for the Outer Limits, eouterlimits.com. Like all that was turned up was like testimonial after testimonial after testimonial in every regional paper about, oh my God, this stalwart or this legendary landmark of Waltham stores is closing. I can't believe it. What's Easter going to be like without the Outer Limits?
He's got a personality. I like this. This is great. Do they all have Massachusetts accents when you go in there?
Some of them do.
Feels like they should.
Steve is again. He is the anti-comic book guy,
so he's not. Yeah.
Again, everything that people parody about comic book shops is not applicable here. He does. Although his Facebook, you can find that link from eouterlimits.com. He does occasionally post to Facebook about like his experience with certain regular customers over the past 40 years that are interesting. Interesting customers that because he has to stay behind the counter and run his store, if they drop in and they're not being disruptive and they have weird questions that are not impolite and require him to eject them, he just simply has to tolerate them. And fortunately, he writes Facebook posts about them. So at least he did not have to suffer through those 6 minutes of people asking, is this a chandelier store? Even though it's clearly not a chandelier store. We benefit from entertainment.
Where are the chandeliers? I heard there was a chandelier store. Try the Dosa store across the street.
Did this used to be a chandelier store?
Thank you, Andy.
Leo, I think all your Boston accents are from Brooklyn.
I know. I don't have a good Boston. I have to work on it. Do you, Jason? Do you have a good Boston accent?
I don't.
No.
I don't. Park the car.
Park
it's
the
a wicked,
have it.
It's a wicked pisser. Park the car.
There you go.
I'm going to pick another, like, just a nice Mac utility. I was doing some work, some research work on the Apple 50 episode that we did on Upgrade, where I had to dig into a lot of old Apple media, like books and magazines and stuff. And I wanted to have quotes from these things. And I thought, okay, I could like get a PDF. And sometimes you get a PDF and the system will OCR it for you automatically and put that and then selectable text and you can paste it. But the thing is, sometimes you get the PDF and it was a PDF generated so long ago based on a scan that the text is bad. It's really bad. And I thought, the system, there's so many modern ways of doing OCR that are better. And I ended up going all the way down the rabbit hole to a utility called Text Sniper, which is amazing. And if you're ever grabbing text off of your Mac's screen in some form, I highly recommend it. You can get it in Set App, or there's a relatively small price to buy it in the Mac App Store. And it sets Command-Shift-2, so just to the left of the screenshot command. If you're somebody who grew up on old Macs, don't worry, there is no longer a second floppy drive that will eject if you hit Command-Shift-2. But that's why we don't.
That's why it's 3 and 4.
Sidebar, that's why it's Command-Shift-3 for a screenshot, is because 1 was to eject disk 1 and 2 was to eject disk 2. True story. Anyway, Text Sniper gives you a little target like you're taking a screenshot, except
it works with video. It works with YouTube video.
So you go Command-Shift-2 and you marquee tool over the text on your screen, and that's all you do. You let go, and the full editable text is on your clipboard to paste wherever you want. And the OCR is good, even if you're grabbing, let's say, a scan of an old out-of-print book. Just saying that I could retype it, but like, surely there's a better way here. And this is the answer, Text Sniper. So if you ever find yourself frequently in that thing where you just are trying to grab some text out of an image, or a bad PDF scan or whatever it is, like you just set this up and forget about it until you need it, and then you do Command-Shift-2. And the workflow, I mean, there's really nothing to it. I was literally like, this paragraph is really fun and I want to quote it. Command-Shift-2, marquee, switch to my text editor, Command-V, done. And it was a good OCR of it. So really, it's got some settings. It's very nice. So I know it's a very specific kind of utility, but like if you're ever, and more to the point, if you ever find yourself where you're like, I need to, you'll be like, oh, Jason recommended something, right? And you can go to mbwpicks.com or whatever and search for it. And it's Text Sniper. Check it out. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, I can do this by screenshotting and giving it to Claude, and
or open in preview, and you can do Apple's text thing, and that will work pretty well. But like, to not have an intermediary, it literally goes from you, like you're taking a screenshot, and then there's text on your clipboard, and there's no step in between.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Now, you guys always mention Set App. Is that worth the $10 a month to get all those apps, including Text Sniper?
I think so.
It depends, but like they have a lot of these picks. I'm like, oh, this is a good one, and then I realize it's also in Set App. So especially, I mean, I want to say it also because if you are a Set App subscriber, and back in the day, it's been a long time. They were a sponsor of my site, but like, not for ages now, but like if you're already in there, then this other utility is just like, you already have it. You can just run it, and then you've got that one too, and that's really nice. So depends on your uses. The Set App's got a lot of stuff. This is not a Set App pick, but they do have a lot of stuff that if you use even 2 or 3 of those apps, it's probably worth it. But you can also just buy this in the Mac App Store.
For $9.99 a year, you get that and more. So if you're about to buy,
really nice.
Text
highly
Sniper,
recommended.
Yeah, very nice.
Love a Mac utility that lives in the menu bar and is super unobtrusive and does a very focused thing, right? Like this is like, I love these kind of utilities. It's like, it's really good at what it does. What it does is very nice, and that's all it does.
Nice.
That was a Wolverine reference there, but anyway, for the comic book nerds out there at the Outer Limits in Waltham, Mass, that was a Wolverine.
Check
joke.
his adamantium claws, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Jason Snell. You will find him with his
with colorful charts at sixcolors.com.
He's going to be doing the charts
Thursday.
in 2 days. Sixcolors.com and all his podcasts, sixcolors.com/Jason. You can get all the Tim Cook puns in Upgrade with Mike Hurley, the cookbook, and all that.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Andy Anatko, for spending time with us and sharing your Waltham finds.
So glad we've had this time together.
Why don't you have a Massachusetts accent?
Funny story. My mom is from outer Boston, so she packs the cat and have it. Yeah, my dad is from western Pennsylvania, so he parked the corn in Harvard Yard.
Oh, he does his washing in Washington, doesn't
he? The two accents like conflict with each other.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because my I don't know if it's still true, but my name is actually hard coded into Apple speech synthesis to pronounce it correctly. Like an engineer actually like called me and said,
that's nice.
And so I was as soon as it was active, like I went to my hey, look, hey, your boy's doing okay. He's like, I thought he'd be impressed with it, and he's like, oh wow, that's really great. Until he realized that, well, you know that like he was like he pointed out that like everybody in his family pronounces it differently.
Oh,
like that,
no.
So basically, like
I
pronounce it like someone who grew up like in the Boston area. And he said, well, I'm sorry, Dad, it's now 50 million Macs versus you and your 4 brothers.
How does Dad pronounce Anatco?
He used to go Anatco.
Anatco.
Yeah.
But wow.
Whereas I used to Anatco, like aunt.
Anatco, you're so fancy.
I do not know.
Thank you, Jason Snell. I have no idea. Christina Warren, thank you so much. Senior Developer Relations at GitHub. She's Film Girl. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Anything you want to plug?
Not right now, but I'll hopefully something. Oh, you know what? I found out tomorrow I'm going to be on Clockwise, so I'll plug
with Micah.
with Micah. Yeah, so I'll plug that.
Yeah.
I'll be on
Clockwise is fun.
It is fun
because it's 15 minutes.
Right,
Like
exactly.
It's 30 minutes.
It's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes, but yeah, but it's
never more than that. Yes, we I'm the co-creator of Clockwise. It's a great podcast. I love it. I don't do it anymore. Except
for the many
I'm the fill-in host now. Basically, they call me when Dan's out of town.
For the many people who say, "Why is your show so damn long?" I tell them, listen to Clockwise if you don't want.
That's why we did it. It's like it's just an alternative. You want 4 tech topics in 30 minutes on Relay. There it is.
When I did it, I thought it was 15, but that's because it goes so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody takes turns, so there's not really any interrupting. It's like it's very structured. That's
the
what
exact
we're going
opposite
for
of this show.
We structured it like a game show, basically, except it's not a game show, but it's structured like one.
Right. I think it was a good idea.
Sure.
Have fun with it tomorrow, Christina.
Thank
you all for joining us. We do this show every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can join us and watch it live if you want. If you're in the club, of course, you get access in the Club TWiT Discord, special access. But everybody can watch on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Kick. And if you do watch, chat, because I see the chats from all of those sites, and I like seeing all of you talking back. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show available at the website, twit.tv/mbw. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. Great way to share clips with friends, help spread the word about the show. And of course, you can also subscribe in your favorite podcast client. That's probably the best thing to do, get it automatically. And if you do that, leave us a nice 5-star review if you don't mind. Help spread the word. Thanks to our club members for making this possible. Thanks to Jason, Christina, and Andy for always being fun to spend some time with. We'll see you next time. Oh, I'm sorry to say it is my sad and solemn duty to tell you at this point of the show, get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.